The following is a special presentation of iRacing on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.
Live from the Nurburgring, Nordschleife here in Germany. This is LSRTV, and we begin coverage of tonight's main event, the Majors Atlantic Pro Split in the 2.4 hours of the Nurburgring. Good evening, sim racing fans, or afternoon, depends on what kind of or what place in the time zone you are. Cisco Scaramuza alongside soon Andrew Cardinale and Michael Guerrilla here, going to bring you all the action here from the Green Hell, and it's GT3 cars on tap here tonight as we get ready to tame what will be 17 to about 18 laps or so of the Nurburgring, the toughest track, 17 miles, 170 turns. It's going to be a long one here tonight, so definitely looking forward to that. And getting things kicked off tonight, well, let's do some housekeeping, of course. So the Major Series, obviously these guys coming into tonight, we'll take a look at your point standings because this is across all events, and right now Mike Kelly continues to sit at the top of the point standings, but right behind him right now is Thomas Peterson, only 5 points back. Then you have David Wilson Jr. is in third, about 18 points back, 19 back Brandon Whitworth, and Joshua Kanata 38 points back. From there on out, it's 42, 44 as you see on screen, 50, and so on and so forth. But as we get set to run here at the Nurburgring, of course we're going to be under GT3 formatting rules. That's the one class we're going to have. We won't have to switch between multi-class or anything like that. It'll be nice and easy here. All 5 cars that will be racing this evening: the Audi R8, the BMW Z4, the Ferrari GT3 488, the Ford GT, which doesn't look like anybody showing up in, the McLaren GT3, which also kind of similar story, nobody really showed up in that, and the Mercedes AMG GT3. But again, things kicked off here. It's going to be 2.4 hours or 144 minutes, and of course your incident cap here this evening is going to be 99. We'll take a look at the weather outside right now on track. It's beautiful, 65 degrees Fahrenheit, wind speed up to about 6 miles an hour to the southeast. Atmosphere is about 70 degrees. It's clear skies, and afternoon running here at the Nurburgring. But gonna see if we can bring in Andrew Cardinale here. And Andrew, we've seen these guys. We saw them last time at Circuit of the Americas, now getting set to take on what is the most demanding circuit in the entire world. And we'll see if we can get him here in a little bit, but just about 2.5 minutes left to go in qualifying. With that being said, Osin Puhaka right now on top of the board, the driver out of Finland, and then right behind him, the American Riley Thompson right behind him in the 283. And the chief thing among all those, 2 prancing horses at the top. This has always been a Mercedes favored track. We've seen that in VLN in the past. The Audis have been able to put up a little bit of a fight, and you see Tom Stanley in 5th, but this is our first opportunity to really see a GT3 kind of dominated Nürburgring event here, and the Ferraris right now sitting on top of the board, and Ross Banfield holding the flag for BMW here, who has plenty of corporate sponsorship around the track that we'll see this evening. But about a minute 45 here left to go before we kick things off here for the pro split of the Atlantic Majors Series. Something to note, of course, across all regions, we got about 275 drivers. That is split up between the 4 regions of Pacific, Atlantic, International, and European. So all of those splits, and of course the other 3 races you can catch the Pacific Series later on tonight over on GSRC, Atlantic split right here. And in case you missed it, the European split was over on RaceSpot earlier today, and the international split was over on V8S Online. And of course, we also had a tandem Spanish broadcast done by the guys over a Rookie Racing Team for the European split as well. So that was pretty cool to see. Something to note as well, the top 10 from each region going to be invited to the All-Star race on May 19th. So if you finish in the top 10 here at the Green Hell, you'll have the opportunity to run in the Major Series All-Star race. So that's going to be something to look forward to. Home to the VLN series amongst others that have run here all the time. So definitely looking forward to this race this evening.
Yeah, and this is my first experience on iRacing with Nurburgring, and the only place that really even compares in size to this place is Le Mans, and Le Mans is still nowhere near the scope of the Nurburgring. It's really cool to be here, be able to help you out here today, Cisco. Should be an exciting race.
Yeah, absolutely, and getting set things counting down at the moment. So with that, we're going to head down trackside and take a look at our starting grid here in the GT3s for the Major Series here at the Nürburgring. Starting on pole is going to be Filaha. We're going to have to get used to that one. He's going to start on pole with that prancing horse, and 2 is outside Osen Puhaka, very fast in opening practice here. Going to start second. 3rd is going to go to Eric Smith, 4th to Team Motoika, and then 5th is going to go to the driver of Cameron Dance. Claude Belval going to start 6th, and then 7th place starter here on track is going to be Tom Stanley. Michael Lane going to start 8th, with 9th overall going to the driver as we take over here in a moment. Andrew, why don't you take it on from here?
So 9th will be Ross Banfield in the 897. I believe that's a BMW. Thomas Peterson will be starting next to him in the 956. That's your top 10. Then we get Mike Kelly, and he has been on fire lately in the majors. He'll be starting from 11th. Lonnie Fitch to his left side in 12th. Brendan Whitworth, we saw him actually win at COTA in the GT3 class. We'll be starting 13th here today. Joshua Kanata in 14th. Riley Thompson in 15th. Eddie Hawks 16th. Randy Ludwig takes over at 17th position. Carl Burke follows him up in 18th. Then we finally get to round out your top 20. Rory Collins in the 35 and Mark Lossing in the 743.
Yeah, and you gotta love when the standings all lock up on us. So keep it going, Andrew, as we are rolling right now, heading towards the start-finish line.
Well, Terry Halleck will be starting off from 21st with Andy Banfield next to him in 22nd. Simon Thorns in 23rd in the 974, followed by Gary Nichols in the number 8 car in 24th. Then Terry Wellman 25th, Eric Klein 26th, Julian Huxley in 27th, Mike Golightly in 28th. Jeremy Forkolb, I believe, in 29th. Marshall Williams in 30th. I'll round out your top 20. 2 more cars starting shotgun on the field will be Jason Walla in the 658 and Jose Pabon in the 705.
Yeah, and as the pace car heads to the inside of pit road, we get ready to race for 2.4 hours here at the Nürburgring. Green flag is in the air, and we're off and heading towards turn number 1 already, Andrew. Cars thundering down. We're 3 wide already. It's a Ferrari sandwich with 2 Mercedes on the outside. They'll go 3 wide towards turn number 1.
And I believe that's, no, that was totally wrong. That was Cameron Dance that felt way back. He started in 5th. And my standings got screwed up too, Cisco. But anyways, the 37 started on pole. He falls back a couple of positions. Now Aniti falling in, trying to just get settled into this place. It's going to be a while before they get settled in, but only, what, 20 laps you said before the race got going?
Yeah, it should only be about 18 laps. That being said, we're talking about 10, 20-minute laps here. So we'll just have to see how that's going to go for these guys. But looks like top 3 fairly spread out. Your top 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Everybody out to an early kind of area. Not too many big gaps here, so not signifying any major issues we've had so far. So good job by the leaders here as they head down and now up the hill heading towards the Schumacher S's and eventually going to be heading out onto the Nordschleife itself. 76 continuing to hang tough in 3rd, and then actually no, that'll be the lead right now as they head through the S's.
Yeah, the 16 of Osain Puhaka, I believe is his last name. You know, he really did exactly what we saw the leaders at COTA do a few weeks ago. They just got right to it, and it was a really, I guess, calm start, just like at COTA, which was surprising to me there, surprising to me here as well. But everybody just kind of settles in really quickly. It's really nice to see these guys do that. But I'll tell you what, we saw it at COTA last time, a few weeks ago, with Mike Kelly, and for the life of me, I forget who it was that he was battling with, but those guys went toe-to-toe and were banging just doors and fenders left and right. They were really fighting. I think we're going to see some of the same here, at least through the Speedway section, I guess if you could call it that. Onto the Nordschleife, it's going to be a little difficult to do that without wrecking, but I think we're going to see a lot of good hard racing here tonight, Cisco.
Yeah, I agree here, Andrew, and getting things back sorted graphical-wise. Puhaka continuing to lead as off goes the AMG of Eric Smith, hard into the Onco barrier. That's big-time damage on that AMG number 32. Ooh, he's still loose. He's still wrecking. That's going to go on the inside wall now, and more issues for the 32. Oh, my goodness, that was a huge accident. Take a second look at it on the replay there.
Yeah, and Cisco, initially Eric just caught some of the curbing, got the car unsettled, and just lost control, and now he's still trying to get onto the track. I'm sure it's up on the replay here, though, but he initially just barely caught that curbing and just sent that car around.
Yeah, that is not good at all. We'll take a look overhead from the chopper cam, and you can see the 32 trying to pace, follow behind Puhaka, and yeah, car just kind of got de-wedged under him. He gets into the outside barrier, and I think just got a little too aggressive getting that going. Combine that with the 56 who hounded him, and just a tap from the Ferrari there sends the 32 off track. So I guess the I believe the 32, but nonetheless the 35, not sure which Ferrari that was, but he was not interested in being held up there, and it does not end well for the 32 there, Andrew.
No, it didn't, and he's already towed his car back to the pit lane, so unfortunately, he's already pretty much done. It's going to probably be, what, I'd imagine 10 minutes to tow it back here in the Nurburgring. I really don't know. It's going to be a strong, I can't say it, I'm sorry. But anyway, it's going to be a huge number as far as how long it's going to take to tow, so he's pretty much done. Not to mention the damage he had on that 32 already. Meanwhile, a couple of, I guess, teammates based on the liveries on these cars, Osain Puhaka and Aniti Pilaha, I believe. These guys are just pulling away right now. Obviously, they don't have a huge lead just yet over, I believe, the 46, and it is the 46 from Team Bushfink in the Mercedes here. Haven't totally pulled away, but they're already starting to really get a feel for this track.
Yeah, TBR Cavaliers flying in that third place position right now. We hop on board with Timo Toika here as he heads towards into the first of the two town areas. Just gotten past, I believe, Swedish Cross here, and we heading through and Armberg now, and Puhaka continuing to open up a very good gap early on, and it's not entirely surprising to see that number 16 up here this early. This is a driver that, like we said, finished background, but outside of that, you know, this is a driver that has gone out there and basically led Club Finland in the past when it comes to the World Series. He was in the broadcast booth with me and Will Vincent a couple of years ago as well, so a big advocate of Club Finland and leading here in the Major Series. It's awesome to see, and of course, I mentioned the World Series because it's both series are run by the same admin, Michael Lett, so something to just take note of here. There is going to be some crossovers. We're starting to get to that point now where we start thinking about that again. It hasn't been terribly long since the last time World Series wrapped up, and they've had some events going on just past just a couple races here that have gone on back and forth, so something to keep note of here. Drivers kind of making that crossover, but Puhaka doing an excellent job right now and looking through the field. We'll go back to this battle right for that, about that 10th position. Joshua Kanata there in the Ferrari, that orange Ferrari 488. Right behind him is going to be Brandon Whitworth, and then Riley Thompson, who was looking like he was going to have a decent car, was second on the practice board right now, is kind of fallen back, and he's gained one position from where he started, but a long road to hoe here for Thompson.
Yeah, and Riley, he's just sitting, like you said, right now behind Brennan Whitworth, trying to keep up with him. You see almost a NASCAR corner there, but he's going to get back out of there. He lost a little bit of time to the 377 ahead of him, actually, as Kanata starts to pull away as well. And I hadn't really watched this battle too much, but now that I do, these guys really seem to be a little bit more on edge than the leader. Seems like their cars just aren't quite as sealed off to the track.
Yeah, exactly, and you know, depending on how sealed off they are, it's if they're, you know, kitted out to the point where they cannot hit those curbs, that's going to be a big issue, Andrew, because there's going to be a lot of endurance coming into this race because, you know, you're going to get sloppy on the Nurburgring. This is not a track that it's easy to memorize, and it would not surprise me if we saw some of these cars hitting the curbs and everything like that. And if you have that car sealed down as much as humanly possible, that could be big issues for you if you get off the racing groove or end up on the curb or something like that, which we've seen plenty of cars end up in the Onco barrier previously doing so.
Yeah, and it's always a challenge setting up one of these cars for any road course, you know, like Sebring maybe, or in this case, the Nürburgring. Do you go for just the overall grip on the track, or do you allow for some room if you hit some curbing and maybe get a little off track to be able to hang on to the car? It's always just a battle of, you know, what you want to do in the setup. These guys seem like they have it pretty set up, but, you know, you go back to the 32 of Eric Smith, those first few corners where he barely caught that little bit of curbing. Like you said, just de-wedge the cars. We have a car around up here. I'm not sure even who that was.
Cameron Dance, the 409. Big issues for him. Yeah, he's in the Onco barrier right now. We'll take a second look at that here on the replay. And you do note the ticker up top. It is giving us the time this time, so it makes it a little bit easier. But Dance coming up the hill, and he just kind of fell off the racetrack. We'll ride on board here and see if we can kind of figure out what happened to that car. But he just missed his braking point or forgot where he was. They were actually coming up to the carousel, and whammo, right into the Onco barrier. Some massive damage to the 409. That is not good for Dance here early on. Kind of similar scenario to where he's going, you know, you're happy it happened early, but at the same time, you tore up your race equipment. That's never good. Dance still trying to get that car back to pit road, and it's a long way back to pit road, but you can see the hood has flown off that, and he's in the Onco barrier just trying to limp that car back.
Yeah, and Cisco, you mentioned it, he just missed his points right there. He ended up coming into that carousel, as you called it, kind of just on the high side, and almost got up to where it's going to feel like a negative camber in the corner itself. It wasn't. He still had a little bit of banking to rely on, but the car just didn't handle right up there in the gray stuff, and just totally lost traction up into the Armco barrier. And that thing, I mean, it's done, but he's trying to limp it back and at least try to stay in this race best as he can.
Yeah, he is, and he's going to be better off than having to tow it if he can limp that car back, because if you're going to tow, it's going to take a good 5 minutes or so. If that car can run halfway decent, which he is trying, it's going to be a long day nonetheless for Cameron Dance. Going to be trying to salvage something out of here at the Nürburgring. But lap number 1 in the books, and Puaka out with his teammate in the inertia car is out to an early lead at the moment. And hard to miss those two cars. It's rare you see a Ferrari that's not colored red, white, yellow, or green or anything like that. And this is a very interesting color. It's a very teal and lime green, and maybe not necessarily beautiful to my eye, but apparently it's working for them because they're out in front 1-2. So it doesn't really matter what colors the car has on it, even if you think green is bad luck in racing. Nonetheless, Puaka and Filaha doing an excellent job right now.
But you know what, Cisco, they catch your eye, and I think that's what matters most, as they're leading this race right now, the 16 and the 37. You go back to third, we talked about him a little bit already, the 46 from Team Bushfink. That's Timu Toika in the 46. Doing a pretty good job of keeping up with these guys, but you go behind him, back to Claude Belvon, and it's a pretty big gap at this point. Claude has fallen a little ways behind third place. Tom Stanley, then in fifth, has fallen back a little bit as well. But sixth, Ross Banfield is right with Tom Stanley so far.
Yeah, and Banfield, the first of the Beamers here this evening, and the Beamer, one of the oldest, actually the oldest GT3 card in your field this evening. This was, of course, the industry standard. Is Tom Stanley going to let the 897 by? So Banfield up to P number 5 here, and Banfield going to be interesting to watch here this evening, because the GT3, the Beamers at least, apparently may be shown a little bit different of a class, but we should be able to, or we should disregard that, I believe, because I believe these cars are the same class. So a little bit issues there with the timing, but all the cars here this evening all running in the same class. So it's just interesting to see timing kind of lose its mind there for a little bit. But Banfield heads down the hill and heading towards Swedish Cross here, and the corner of all corners, as they call it. But nonetheless, Banfield's doing a very good job, but I've really been surprised, Andrew, just how dominant the Ferraris have been here early, and part of that probably probably going to come down to the teams working on those cars between the team of the top two and then Belval right now. This has always and traditionally been an AMG racetrack. It just has been between VLN and between when Blancpain Endurance has come here in the past and some of the other series. This has characteristically been an AMG track because it's a power circuit. You need to have a lot of horsepower here. If you're in something like the Audi, yes, you have the run through the corners, but you don't have the same sort of off the corner horsepower that the AMGs do, but the Ferrari's just sticking it to them right now.
Yeah, and I think back to how iRacing sets up the special events. You think about the Nurburgring 24-hour, and like you said, it's an AMG-dominated track. You also think about Audi and Porsche when you come here. Granted, we don't really see, I don't think we see any Porsches in this field, and we don't see any Audis really contending for the lead right now, but those are the cars you think of when you come to the Nürburgring. Well, like you said, 2 Ferraris out front. I also got to think back to Bathurst. I believe that's been dominated by Mercedes in recent memory, and I believe that's starting to shift.
Yeah, exactly, and it's going to allow these guys, it's going to make some of the AMG drivers have to think a little bit more on strategy, because this isn't something they've necessarily had to deal with until the build that these Ferraris released, so something to keep note of here as we run through this evening. But a good job nonetheless by your top 5 have all gotten spread out, except, well, the 2 teammates are still within sight of each other, so that's pretty cool to see right now. Looking through the rest of the field, possibly issues. 1 car off track, that's Lonnie Fitch, the 26. That AMG, the purple AMG right now, in big time issues.
And it seemed like Ross Banfield might have been a little underpowered for a moment. He gets back going. But yeah, you mentioned Lonnie Fitch. Sorry, is it he or she?
I believe she, but we're probably going to corrected one way or another, so we'll tread lightly over that. But yeah, Fitch just ran into issues going into that hard left-hander. It's a sweeping kind of area, very high speed area, Andrew. Then you have the right-hander right into the left, and you have to be hard on the brake. It's a dual apex because you have the right to the left, and Fitch just absolutely messed up the braking point right there, and just into the Onco barrier there with a little bit of the squishy barrier, the white and reds as well, but nonetheless damage to that number 26 car.
I believe Lonnie had even gotten hit at some point before then, maybe on the previous lap, because it looked like one of her taillights wasn't quite working. But you mentioned it, some issues there, just got a little bit out of control, couldn't really hang on to it. We're going to see that a lot over these next, probably 16 or so laps that will complete the entirety of the race. But, I mean, we've already been talking about how challenging this circuit is, and really, it's almost like if you were to just, I guess, tackle a hill climb going up and then somehow getting back to the bottom, going back up. It's one of those things where you don't really memorize every piece of it until you've run it for maybe 24 hours. It's not going to be easy for these guys to get around, especially once you get damage on the car. It's just going to be worse and worse as time goes on.
And that's not, and this isn't a track where you want to be facing that at all, because as the car gets worse and worse, as Brandon Whitworth had a little bit of an excursion with the grass there, we cut to him. This is not a track where you want an ill-handling car, but sometimes you just have to deal with it. Something to note here this evening, though, is they pointed out in the chat, the European split, it was 18 laps long. The BMWs dominated. They had the top 3, and then your Mercedes cars were 4th through 7th. We're seeing a very different story here with the Prancing Horses 1, 2, and then we have a Merc, another Prancing Horse, an Audi, a Beamer, and then 3 more Mercs. So very much different here early, but still plenty of racing to go. So either fuel mileage or something else may come into play here with the manufacturer breakup early.
Yeah, and you go back, you think about maybe Daytona, Sebring, earlier events in the season, maybe not in this series, but just on iRacing in general, and it seems like it's gone kind of either way between the Mercedes AMG and the Ferrari, at least in my experiences in GT3 so far this year. I came into it this year not really knowing what's what in the zoo, I guess, in GT3, but just kind of getting a feel for it. And the Mercedes, like we've been talking about, is a really good car. You mentioned the power that it's got, but at the same time, you got to think about just being nimble at a place like at Nurburgring, and that I would actually kind of give a little bit of, I guess, an advantage to the Ferrari in a way. It's really nimble. It can get through these corners pretty nicely, and yeah, you want to have power at this place, but you also got to think about keeping momentum. You can't really, I guess, if you're in an underpowered car like maybe the Ferrari, you want to keep up your momentum, sorry if I can get that out, through the corners. So being nimble is going to help you out a lot. So I think that's where that kind of evens out. It's really just, I guess, a catch-22 between these two cars, and that's why we're seeing them battle so evenly right now. I'm watching Brandon Whitworth, and I'm not even sure who that is right behind him. It's going to be Riley Thompson's. Yeah, so these guys are really even. Obviously, the draft is going to help down this one straightaway, but really, I kind of have to wonder if maybe it's just the fact that this is a very technical circuit. You got to give, I guess, the handling advantage to the Ferraris.
Well, part of that also comes down to the gearing. The gearing is a little bit better on these Ferraris. Fraser Williamson pointed that out in our comment section. So you gotta think the gearing on the Ferraris is giving them that advantage, especially down the long front straightaway here before we head back towards the GP circuit. So that's going to be a huge deal here this evening. But like we said, the Mercedes power also going to play into factor as well. But the Beamers seem to, at least in this last BOP update, to kind of claw something back, especially with the dominance they had in the Euro split. So something to note this evening here. But we're going to keep an eye on that battle with Whitworth, and we're going to try not to ever say that again because apparently I can't. But Thompson right now leading. Brandon Whitworth was able to get that position, and then our points leader coming into today, Mike Kelly, back here in about 9th position, the Valvoline entry, rolling through the corners right now on the GP circuit.
No one is away from getting, I guess, tongue-tied. But yeah, you mentioned Mike Kelly, the points leader coming into this event. He's just been on a tear. You think even back to the Silver Crowns back at Phoenix, and even then, he just seemed to have this kind of power about him to just, I guess, overcome anything. He was really fast back at Phoenix and overcame a lot of setbacks in that race, came back to win it, and had a great run last time out at COTA. Now you see him another, I guess, different situation for him. Last time was the DP, now he's in the Mercedes, but still doing pretty well. At least Mike Kelly kind of well, where maybe he isn't the most dominant driver, but he's at least showing that he has strength and he can overcome and adapt.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's going to be key here this evening. As oh man, I was gonna print out the teams to make this a little bit easier for us, but the problem is they're 24 pages long. This is what happens when you have a series as big as the major series, so that's not gonna work. We're gonna have to figure something else out here to make it a little bit easier to tell who's who, but nonetheless, right now Puhaka and his teammate right now still running 1-2. The inertia car is doing an excellent job. TBR still being repped in 3rd. Timo Toika doing an excellent job. And looking through the field here, looking to see if there are going to be any issues. How about a little bit of a battle, actually? How about Julian Huxley and Michael Lane, the 62, the 322 going at it right now as they head through the GP arena?
Yeah, Huxley's looking pretty good, especially for being this far back and having a totally clean car. That's what I like. And I was actually about to mention Andy Banfield. Much of the same with Andy Banfield. He's a little ways further back than what we've been focusing on thus far, Cisco. But, you know, him and Huxley both, and I'm sure some more drivers, have really clean cars so far. And you might think, oh, well, they're in the back. They might not be as good. They might tear their cars up quickly. Well, no, that's not always the case. They might just not have the overall speed to just go out and set a great lap. Where, you know, Huxley and now Banfield as well, they've got really clean cars at this point. They're just trying to hang on, and maybe they aren't quite as fast as the leaders, Puhaka and whatnot, but they're still keeping their car clean. They're still keeping themselves in this race, and that's what I really like to see out of these guys further back.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the biggest thing, is keeping that car clean as we continue to watch Huxley have to hold off Lane here as they head through the first couple corners here on the Nordschleife, and you can see I equate this track very much to a rally stage because it feels very much like that. Unless you are one of the few drivers who have this memorized, who have put hours upon hours upon hours of practice, days of practice into this racetrack to learn every single corner, generally you're going to be at the point to where you're still going to have a corner. Yes, you'll be able to recognize some of the bigger ones like Hohenrain when you come down the front straightaway, or Swedish Cross or Flugplatz or something like that. Some of those corners, that's going to be a little bit easier for you to recognize because you know them, because they're the marquee corners. Is a little bit of a block there by Huxley as they head down the hill, but something, you know, through Swedish Cross there and into Arenberg. But this track, it's 170, 160 corners, so I mean, you're not going to memorize them all, and if you have not put in your practice time, like I said, you know, the hours and even days of practice, there's still going to be corners that are going to slip from your mind, and you're going to have to be able to recognize and be able to lay off a little bit. They always say racing drivers, you know, you aren't using your 100%, because if you do, you're probably going to end up crashing. Well, I think a lot of these drivers are going to have to realize and, you know, make sure they aren't giving absolutely everything in the car, because otherwise they may end up in the guardrail.
And I'm just looking at the chat, and there's apparently a black flag for Ocean Puhaka. I don't really know what happened. Maybe you can pull something up on your list of events or whatever.
Yeah.
I looked out in the chat, and they were saying there's a black flag that he'll be pitting this next time by.
I'm looking through. So he took the start. Everything looked fine there. I'm not seeing a black flag, at least recorded through session events that I can see anyway. I can see a fair amount of off tracks here this early, but I'm not seeing anything listed, so we'll have to get confirmation on what the issue is with Puhaka there as the race goes on. But that's massive implications there for him as the driver who's currently leading has his teammate behind him. You know, you got to throw your strategy out the window at that point. So if these guys can go for about an hour on fuel, it might work in the case of if they still had the short pit. But yeah, I'm looking through. I'm trying to find what the issue was, but still not sure yet.
And obviously, we'll keep an eye on the situation with the 16. Again, we don't really know up here, just going off the chat. It seems like maybe something with the start-finish line, maybe passing before the start-finish line on the start. That's what is being said out in the chat by Tapani. Obviously, we'll have to wait and see. Might be able to give a look back at it, but iRacing sometimes doesn't like when you go that far back. But Cisco, really interesting to see. Again, we just got to wait and see what happens when he comes back around to the pit road.
Absolutely, and Puhaka, as they're mentioning in the chat, I believe was on the commentary for the Finnish Sim Racing Championship, because I believe that's what he does usually, so I'll have to see if we get confirmation on that. But not a good way to start out the day here at the Nurburgring, but Anti's going to have to take over the race lead from him, and Timu right now slotting into that third position, or will be second here. But yeah, big change here early as we continue. 3 Finns still at the front of your field. Why am I not surprised?
Yeah, I think we call them aliens when they're that good. But anyways, you mentioned 3 Finns out there, and some guys that are actually surprising me that might not always be, I guess, accustomed to this place. We've talked about some of them so far. Mike Kelly, of course, he's in 9th, and I at least know him from oval racing. I'm not sure about his presence when it comes to road racing. Some more of these guys that just are doing a really good job. Have to give them a bit of a shout out for keeping their cars in one piece. Joshua Kanata doing a great job so far in that 97. He's currently 10th, or at least he was the last time by the scoring loop at the start-finish line. Mark Lossing came by in 11th, and just a lot of these guys doing a very good job so far, and really the whole field in general has done a great job. Do want to mention, though, Thomas Peterson had an issue towards the start of the race. He has actually fallen back, it looks like, to, yeah, the 31st position last time by the line. I'm not sure if that's holding, and I believe it is. I'm not sure what happened to him, but at some point he lost a ton of time.
Yeah, he headed down pit road at some point. It was an off track, so it looked like an issue for that driver, and it brought him down pit road. So that was the issue with Thomas Peterson. He finds himself all the way back, like you said, in 31st.
And the leader's in.
Yep, so there's the black flag being served by Puhaka. That's massive issues for him. So, I mean, unless they work this into the strategy, I'm not sure they're going to be able to overcome this. Puhaka is very fast, but, I mean, to have to make an extra pit stop, that's never a good thing. So we'll have to see. Maybe a strategy call comes from them, or what the case is going to be. So we'll have to see what the case is. Rolls into the pit stall here. Auto jacks go up, and we'll stay with him here. See what the call is going to be. Still in that race car, I believe. So we'll have to see if any of that changes. Yep, he's still in the car, so not ditching it here early, but already falling back to the 5th position as it sits right now, and you got a feel for him down to 7th. It sounds like maybe what the issue was like you said, Andrew, took a case where he was a little bit more awake on the start than his teammate, but even then, you wouldn't think it'd throw a black flag, but nonetheless, now down to 10th, and still looking bad for Puhaka here. Probably, I think, trying to figure out what happened.
I went back and viewed the start a little bit, and he did get a great launch over Pilaha. He got a great start, really, over his teammate, and now he finally pulls out of the pit lane, but he did have a pretty good start. So if that's what gave him the black flag, I can see what happened there. He just got a great start over his teammate, got to the line first, and, well, sometimes, yeah, that would be the reason for it. So that's my guess. I would guess that, you know, would be the issue, but at the same time, you mentioned good on him for not bailing. Well, I mean, he's got a great car along with his teammate. I couldn't see any reason that they would want to bail.
Yeah, exactly.
Even if he has to just run back through the field, maybe get back into the top 10, that's still some pretty decent points given the circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's got a very fast car, but going to have to make up a lot of a gap here to see how things are going to go. Right now, it's being shown at about a minute. Point standings as they roll, that puts Andy Banfield right now in 14th, and then Ross, who we've seen up further afield here in these races, just hasn't had the finishes I think he wanted. That definitely was the case at Daytona earlier in the year, and then again at Circuit of the Americas. So I think Ross definitely wants to be further up afield, but Andy right now holding it over the other Banfield as we continue to race here at the Nurburgring.
And it looks like our previous leader, Puhaka, should settle into about 10th position. He's ahead of Lossing, behind Kanata. So it looks like he'll get into 10th. Not too bad of a loss given the, you know, the situation there, but still a big time issue for him. But I'd imagine he can work up at least towards maybe the, I guess, top 7 cars, if not into a top 5 or maybe even a podium. That car just looks so good early on. If he can work the strategy just right, he should be able to really get away with a pretty decent finish still. Go further back, Mark Lossing, like I mentioned, he's in 11th, so he will be behind Puhaka. Won't have any chance of running him down, I don't think. Just that 16 has been on rails. You go to 12th, that's Carl Berg, then Andy Banfield. You mentioned Ross Banfield. That whole deal between them, well, Ross is in 5th, and Andy is in 13th.
And Andy in one of the Mercs, while Ross is in the Beamer. So interesting to see those two split manufacturers as well. But behind them, Terry Halleck running 14th, and then Lonnie Fitch has fallen back to 15th. But that GT3 car still not looking great for wear, but if it's drivable, it's drivable. So Lonnie going to keep it on track there as well. But something to note, like we said, came down, got fuel for that number 16 car. So Puhaka is going to have a long drive ahead of him here. So he's going to have to head up 9 positions back to where he started. So nonetheless, a long day, but he's still in the race, and he took a full fuel here. So it may work out for him just yet. We'll have to see how the fuel mileage pans out. Randy Ludwig, meanwhile, right now running in 16th, tracking down Lonnie Fitch as well, but keep in mind Ludwig, the 747, definitely has a better looking car than Fitch does because not as much damage on it. So Randy going to try and get back to where he started in that 15th position. And then Simon Thorns running 17th, 18th to Michael Lane. That's another 2-car pack there. And then Huxley, who was able to break away a little bit here and is 19th. And Rory Collins running 20th right now with Forkob right behind him in 21st in what looks like the second Audi here. Tom Stanley, the sole representative of Audi right now through your top 19. So that kind of shows you Audi's not quite as happy as they've been so far this evening. The Mercedes definitely winning in the manufacturer battle right now, just from the fact of there's so many out there.
Yeah, and speaking of Audis, I'm not sure what happened between these two, but it looks like Eric Klein, and I believe that was Gary Nichols. Yes, Gary Nichols in the Beamer. Looks like those two might have made contact. The Audi of Klein has a lot of damage, and the Beamer of Nichols has a lot of damage. I'm not sure what happened between these two, if it was even these two, but those guys both have a lot of damage to their cars so far. Looks like Klein's going to come out on top, and I believe Eddie Hawks is back there behind. Yeah, he's behind now Nichols, who was ahead of Klein at the start-finish line. So those two spots have switched up. Eddie Hawks currently in 24th. So these guys outside the top 20, but still battling really hard, and I guess something must have happened between those two.
Yeah, I guess we couldn't wind back the cameras and see what the issue was, but we do know there was an issue there. So keep an eye and see if how that's going to pan out between Klein. And you can see a lot of damage on that Audi. A lot of damage. But nonetheless, we're going to have to start getting the memes ready for that one. But nonetheless, Puhaka's already up to 9th position, so that's one car gone. That was Mark Lossing, the Scuderia Corsa-esque car that Lossing's driving. That's one spot, so 8 left to go for Osen here to get back to the front in that inertia car as he heads through the carousel. And, of course, one of the noteworthy corners here at the Nurburgring. Just about half an hour in so far. We're going to take our first opportunity to step aside here on LSRTV and hop on board Puhaka here to take a little bit of a break. You're watching the Nurburgring 2.4 hour here for the Atlantic Majors Pro Split. Be back in a moment on LSRTV, your home for sim racing.
Once again, photo finish here of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Will it be Tim Hogan? It's going to be Christopher DeMeritt at the line.
Back live here, had a quick notes break so we could suss out some of the corners. We have a whole guide that you can find online. Nurburgring actually posts a guide which allows you to see where some of the necessary places are on track, so I went to the old printer and printed that out here to kind of help out for me to jog my memory on some of these corners. Yeah, there's a lot. It's when you have 100+ corners, at least for us for the broadcast wise, it takes a little while for us to figure things out. But we're back live here on LSRTV, your home for sim racing. Cisco Scarboza and Andrew Cardinale here with the call of the Nurburgring 2.4 hour this evening. And already we've had issues with the driver we've been watching here during the break, and Osen Puhaka has worked his way. He's still in that 9th position after coming down pit road after having to serve a black flag at the start of the race for leading the or for passing before the start finish line, and was ahead of his teammate Antti Filaha in his in that 37 car, is continuing to lead the race at the moment. So as a result, Puhaka had to come down, took a full tank of gas here, and is now going to have to work his way back through this field. But see, up at the top, about an hour 48 left to go here at the Nurburgring, and we thank you for joining us here on LSR TV. And If you're looking for Mike Kelly, our points leader right now, running in the 7th place position. And Andrew, Mike Kelly's going to have a really good, I think, points race coming out of this evening to kind of open up that gap a little bit. We took a look at the points standings earlier on, but you know, he's only 5 points between himself and Peterson, so that's going to have to make things very important for him, and he's going to have a very good race to kind of open up that gap a little bit. If you're looking for where Peterson is, Thomas Peterson's having the worst race he has had this season right now, all the way back in your 29th position. We mentioned it earlier, ran into issues, but that's going to be a big change in the championship, and that's going to force basically I think if you're Mike Kelly, Andrew, you're going to want to open up that points gap as much as you can.
Yeah, but I mean, you mentioned this tight battle. It's not going to be so tight anymore, considering you mentioned Peterson's shotgun on the field right now, 32nd of 32 cars, and Mike Kelly's within the top 10. I think that's a really good run as far as he goes. Again, I know him from oval racing, so I wouldn't be surprised if he's a little out of his comfort zone right now. Obviously, he did great at COTA, but I'm not sure about I guess his expertise when it comes to the Nurburgring. I don't think really anybody is ever an expert at this place, to be fair, but he's doing a great job right now. You mentioned he's in 7th place, so a great run thus far from Mike Kelly. At this point, a pretty good points night, move on to the next race, and I think he's going to be in pretty good shape because, you know, you can always wait until he's in his comfort zone as long as he maintains here tonight. If this is anywhere outside of what he's used to, I think if he can just maintain what he's got, even if he comes in 31st with Peterson 32nd, it's still a bit of a gain, at least over Peterson.
Yeah, I agree, Andrew, and we'll have to see how the night goes for Kelly. Meanwhile, Riley Thompson is behind a little bit of a battle, and that's right now. Ross Banfield was able to get back by Tom Stanley, but Banfield up to that 4th position, and Stanley continuing to close in a little bit here. So we'll have to see how the case is going to go for that driver. The 961, is Stanley going to be able to wheel him back in and maybe try and make a race of this thing?
Yeah, and we go back to COTA, which we keep referencing, or at least I do, and Tom Stanley was just the best GTE driver in the field. Was competing he was competing with Daytona prototypes when he was in a GTE car. Granted, there's not a huge performance gap, that's still a pretty big gap, and I think it was the 961. He was just on fire. Could not touch him. The only way you could touch him was if you were in the next class up. And Tom Stanley doing a great job here tonight. Not quite, maybe, I guess, following up with that performance, but still doing very, very well. Top 5, granted, you know, we saw Puhaka get that black flag, fall way back to 10th position for a while, and now he's starting to work his way back up. But actually, Golightly might have had an issue. I see he's disconnected.
Yeah, Golightly, we've lost him, so we'll take a moment and see if we can wind back and figure out what happened to that car. And he's another driver who has not at all had the major series that he's been looking for, but looks like he was on pit road. The maybe issue here, looking at that car, this is him coming through the final couple of corners. Might have just pulled over. See him come through the final corner here, and I'm not seeing a particular amount of, like, a lot of damage on that car or anything, but see him go past the pit stall there, and everything looks fine. But we'll watch him for a moment and see if we can figure out what happened. So the 70, he just kind of pulls over and parks it. So that's what happened to the 77. It might go lightly. That car behind the wall here this evening, he's donezo. So interesting call for the 77. Not sure why, but nonetheless, he's out of this thing right now.
Yeah, and you mentioned he's not had the great season that maybe he wanted coming into this season in the major series. But, you know, you got to consider maybe, again, this could be outside of his comfort zone, just got upset with it, didn't want to do anything that could impact someone else's race, so just decided to pull it off. Not the worst decision, I guess, if that's the reason, but still, you don't want to see somebody leave the race. You know, obviously, practice makes perfect, and I guess really the best kind of practice you can get is in the race. So if he's having trouble, maybe could have kept going, but at the same time, he's the one with the steering wheel in his hands, not us. But we go forward to another battle right now. This is going to be Eric Klein and sorry, I lost the name. Eric Klein and Jerry Forkhold in the 542 and 676. These two Audis, yeah. These two Audis just going back and forth. They actually swapped positions not too long ago, and Eric Klein took over. Now he's trying to catch up to Rory Collins, and it looks like that 542 just might do it.
Yeah, Eric Klein has been very fast as of late, and unsurprisingly is able to open up that gap a little bit on Forkle, but going to have a little bit of slower traffic in front of them. That's actually not slower traffic. That will be for position. The driver out of Michigan, Rory Collins, or rather that's Indiana. Couldn't read that label at first, so local driver, at least in my case. But nonetheless, Collins kind of losing time to those two Audis, so Eric Klein actually on fire right now, has caught that AMG Mercedes and is going to catch him here and probably get back by him here in a little bit. Next couple of corners, they head up the hill as it sits right now. Yeah, pass done. So 35 has just been dusted by the 542. Eric Klein, despite the damage, trying to gain some spots here early on.
And you know what, Cisco, we go back to the Circuit of the Americas, and it seemed like the Audis might have had a slight leg up over the Mercedes in some of the more technical sections. That could play into that as well, but it really just looks like the 542 of Klein is handling oodles better than Rory Collins right now. He's just having some issues, and really he has no damage on that car. So, you know, the other thing, he might just be trying to save some fuel, trying to save some tires, figure for the long run. Granted, this is a 2.4-hour race, not just, you know, I guess in this case a 5-lap race, considering they're only on lap 5 of about 18 predicted. So really, it's tough to guess what they're doing in the car. It's tough to guess if he's just got a bad setup, not the greatest car under him, or if he's got some kind of issue. But either way, Rory Collins going backwards.
And if you're with us here and you're curious what happened at Talladega, apparently massive wreck. So I'm still trying to get the results from here. So if you're curious about that, we'll have that for you in a little bit. So while that battle was going on,
it's actually looking like these are unofficial, obviously, but after lap 188 of 188, it's looking like Joey Logano is going to come home with the win.
Yes, he is.
A big deal for me. I definitely a Logano fan myself, but anyways, back to what's on hand here at the Nurburgring.
I was going to look at Banfield, who's still kind of in range of Tom Stanley. Stanley, I think, actually got back by
he
Banfield.
Did. So a great pass from Tom Stanley. That's the one. Tom Stanley getting back into the top 5, or actually, this will put him into the top 4. Sorry, but if you figure that Huhaka will probably come back through the field at some point and get by these guys, you got to consider that kind of the 5th position if he can actually manage a big comeback there. But what's interesting to me actually is he really hasn't made up too much time. Granted, he's finally catching up to Joshua Kanata. He's not coming back through the field in any way like I thought he would.
Yeah, exactly. I have to agree with you, and a little bit of a lag there, Spike. I think Nürburgring's starting to stress out
New Hampshire at my home track. Over the past 2 weeks, I've been on iRacing, practicing a little bit here and there with the modified and the NASCAR XFINITY car. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been a great tool for me to kind of get used to that stock car body again and be prepared for the race today. Well, yeah, it's a mile long, so the draft kind of plays into effect here with the modifieds, punches a big hole in the air, and we run restrictor plates. So it makes a big difference. Just really fast, and it's our Daytona. So that's what's great about it, and we have a fast car for tomorrow. I think the biggest thing is they're heavier cars. The tire's a lot different, and the way you go about setting them up's a lot different. They use all 4 tires more than a modified, where we typically drive off the right rear, you know, so. Well, actually, it's funny. I raced NASCAR race in 2003 before iRacing came about. And then when iRacing came about, my friend Kevin Iannarelli, who works at iRacing, kind of told me, hey man, you need to switch over to this. And when I did, I was like, oh my God, this is like real life. So I started using it as a tool of mine to really prepare for modified races, whether it was Stafford or Thompson or Loudon, Bristol. And then obviously the Xfinity Series last year, going to road courses, trying to get laps, and use it as a tool that can get me as prepared as I could be without actually doing it. So it's been great.
So it's about that time where apparently my router decides to explode. So if you followed me at all on Facebook as of recently, you've noted me getting ready to beat it out with a hammer. Luckily, that should hopefully be fixed here by next week, because by then I'll be back home. So hopefully we'll get that sorted. So do apologize for the technical issues, but fortunately, there's not really a whole lot I can do here for about another week or so, so we'll just have to see how things sort out. But we welcome you back to coverage, finally. The Nurburgring 2.4 hour for the Atlantic Major Series here on LSRTV, your home for sim racing. We ride on board the Audi of Carl Burke here, or rather the Mercedes, because he's involved with the 3-car battle as we come down the Dottinger Hove. And back live here, Cisco Scar moves alongside Andrew Cardinale to bring you all the action. And Andrew, while I was off in the depths of the internet, pit stops have started for us.
Yeah, I noted Claude Belval came in, and now he's finally exiting the pit lane, getting back on the track. It seems like a lot of these guys finally getting that stop they needed, be able to pretty much reset, get back at it for another run, obviously get some fresh rubber on these cars, maybe get some damage repaired, and of course get some weight back in the rear end, and maybe free these cars up. I don't know if they were going to be getting tight. Some of these guys might have been, so that should help them out. Either way, these guys getting back at it. Brandon Wentworth currently up to 7th position. Mid the pit stops, Buhaka now up into 8th. I noted just after we had those issues, actually, is we have an issue in the pit lane. Actually, Mike Kelly leaving, and I believe that was Michael Lane coming in. Michael Lane had to check up for just a moment, but they get that sorted out. But I was mentioning right after he went away that Buhaka had actually worked up and gotten by Joshua Kanata and was soon going to be getting after Mike Kelly. Well, now Mike Kelly gets out of the pit lane, so that pretty much is why he's now so far back, and Joshua Kanata has also made his pit stop, it looks like. So now we're just waiting on exactly when the leaders will come in. I believe Ante is still out there.
Yeah, Ante continuing to lead right now, and Timu right behind him, 1-2, and then Tom Stanley running in the 3rd position. They've kind of slotted up since Belval came down pit road. That puts Stanley in 3rd and Banfield in 4th. Those two have not been able to really leave each other, Andrew, for the last, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. They've been within at least sight of each other. It was Banfield in the lead for a bit, then it was Stanley, and now it's Stanley in the lead for a bit. So we'll have to see if that swaps back over. But either way, pit stops, it's going to be easy to tell when pit stops are, because it's either going to happen on one lap or the next lap, because generally you're not going to be able to pit strategy out everything here at the ring, because if you get it wrong, Andrew, you're done. You're basically done, because you're going to be out in the middle of no man's land, probably by carousel or whatever, out of fuel, and you can't coast back to pit road from here. It's not possible.
Yeah, not only will you either end up coasting for a while and be under pace then, but you'll also have to tow back, and of course you have to slow down and stop to be able to tow back, and then it's just an agonizing tow back to the pit lane. So you don't want to run out here. You do not want to miss that calculation. Even if you have to run a different engine map for the last 2 laps of the run, do it, because you don't want to run out of gas. So Palaha and Toika maybe kind of cutting it a little bit close in my mind. If everybody comes in 1 lap, and we're talking, I think, let's see, the track is 16 miles. That's a 16-mile, window to work with. That's not fun. You go to places like Sebring or whatnot, that's like 2 miles, maybe 3 miles. It's not that big of a deal. You can work with that. But when you're talking 16 miles, Cisco, you don't want to mess up.
No, you don't. And generally, it's going to be a lot easier to figure out pit strategy, because you're only going to be coming in a handful of times here. These guys were out for roughly about 7 laps or so, so it's going to make our pit strategy easy. Probably going to pit twice, because this will take us to about 14. We're estimated to do about 18 laps. That's what they did in the Euro split, so probably something similar. And you have to think the way that adds up, if it's 14 laps or so with 1 stop in the middle, that actually is going to benefit Puhaka a bit here, because he got his short fill stop out of the way. So he may just be in the catbird seat here, considering he's been out of traffic for the most part, so he's been able to just put the hammer down. And that's another huge part of this. Lap traffic really isn't going to be much of a factor. It will be one at some point, but not as much of one.
But you know what's interesting here, Cisco? Puhaka has been able to just run out, like you said, hammer down, and just go at it. He hasn't really had to deal with much traffic, but he has lost about 13 seconds throughout the course of these last few laps, trying to maybe make up some time on guys like the leader, Antti, his teammate. He's lost time, and he even lost some time in the last couple of laps, about a second's worth. So, you know, that's not much when you think about it as just a second, but when you think about it as the Nurburgring, and you're a minute 13 seconds behind, and you're losing a little bit each lap. This guy was leading earlier in the race. You know, yeah, it adds up. He was leading earlier. He got a black flag, and now he's falling further and further behind. And I think we both really thought he was going to be a guy to watch, almost like Kyle Busch sometimes on restarts in NASCAR, where he just runs through half the field, and suddenly he's there again. I really thought he was going to work at least maybe 10 seconds towards the leader each run, maybe start to make up some time, but he just hasn't done that.
Yeah, agreed. And
now he's totally off the banking.
Yeah, no, Puhaka definitely is going to have to step things up a little bit here, but keep in mind, he still has about a minute cushion in terms of the time he lost on pit road, so maybe just settling into the cruise a little bit. We'll just have to see what the game plan is for the 16. Maybe he doesn't have the fuel lap quite to where he needs it. Maybe he's trying to save that extra lap or so to see if it can get that Ferrari to the end here. But nonetheless, looking for Antti to eventually make the turn to pit road here. We head up the hill, and we're just coming out here onto the Dottinger Hove, the very, 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 very long straightaway, and named for the village of Dottinger. Just to you can see it on the left just a little bit there if you want to sightsee a little bit on board, and it's sightseeing at I don't know, about 170 miles an hour, so things definitely flying by here at the Nurburgring, the fastest part of the racetrack, and no MX-5s to go 4 wide here like they do in the VLN series, so it makes life a little bit less stressful for us, but expecting to see that leader, the 37, in this time. We'll stay with him here as he heads into now Tiergarten and Hohenrain here, and gets sets to head towards the GP circuit once again, and final corners here, and gonna make the right hand turn and merge onto pit road. Yep, he's already lined it up down to a very, very, very slow 37 miles an hour. That's pit road speed here at the Nürburgring, and down looks like everything good for that Ferrari. Coming full service, I would think. Probably not going to want to double stint tires, and he's got a big enough gap to where he's not going to have to. His team with Toyka just hitting pit road now. I guess if you wanted to double stint, you could. I don't know. We'll have to see what the call is going to be, if that car is going to go up on the jack stands. Car rolls into the pit box here, and may stay on the tires here. We'll have to get a report here from down in the team and see what the call was. But nonetheless, top two cars in, and Tom Stanley has opened up a little bit of a gap on Ross Banfield here now, Andrew. They're going to head in as well. So like we said, fairly easy to call the pit strategy here at Nürburgring. It's going to be some of the guys going to short pit one lap, and then everybody else in the next lap.
And we've been here for an hour now, Cisco, and we're talking about pitting on lap 8.
Unless you're Riley Thompson. In that case, you're going to throw all our strategy out the window. Riley going to stay out another lap here, so he's going to go on 8 laps. Thompson thinks he can make it, so he better be sure he's right, or he's about to make a 16-mile mistake.
Yeah, and we already talked about just the sheer scope of this circuit here at the Nürburgring. You don't want to mess up. We've talked about it already, and if this doesn't work out for Riley Thompson, unfortunately, we're going to be talking about this number 283 car not being in the picture whatsoever the rest of the race. So I like the move, if he can make this work, to cut out, I guess, a lap of the next run, or go a lap further, I should say, and, expand his run by a lap, but it's not going to be easy. We've already run an hour's worth, and, we go back to the Circuit of the Americas, and really any road course these guys race at in the GTE or GT3 series, whatever, you get about an hour's worth of fuel, however many laps that may be. You get about an hour's worth of just running hard out. So this is now getting a little past that. We're at an hour and 2 minutes, I believe, around there. So we'll see what he can do. I'm backing him fully here. I hope he can make it work, but it's going to be tough because he's still got, I'd say, about 14.5 miles to go.
Yeah. And for those of you on the other side of things, about 20 kilometers to go. So it's going to be a Hail Mary here for Riley Thompson, but hey, if he can make the extra lap, that'll make things a little bit more interesting as far as the pit strategy goes, and maybe put things more into the hands of Osen Puhaka, who, by the way, after we have cycled out, new race leader. So, well, I guess not new race leader, assuming we're still waiting on Thompson, who's currently the race leader. Puhaka right now running second, his teammate not too far behind him. Things looking up right now for Puhaka, considering this would be how the pit strategy would have cycled out. So as it sits right now, Andrew, Puhaka may be sitting actually fairly pretty, though keep in mind his pit stop may not have, since he short pitted, that pit stop might be slightly longer or slightly shorter for those guys on that splash and go. So we have that to factor in, but as it sits right now, Osen sitting right where he needs to be, assuming these guys still need that splash and dash.
Well, that, and he has already pitted once. He's that far behind. We mentioned he lost about a minute in time to his teammate in 37. Well, he still has to pit again because he's going to be running out of fuel here soon. And while he might, this is a big might, be able to stretch it to the end of the race, it's a 2.4-hour race. It's about 2.5 hours roughly. And maybe, it's a big maybe. Again, there's a lot of fuel-saving area here at this place. And well, maybe he can try and stretch it.
I'm kind of counting on him pitting again, Andrew, because I'm assuming the rest of the field is still going to have to do that splash and go.
Well, of course, but you got to consider he's still got to pit at least once for a full service. So even if he was to stretch this out, he's running slower times there. You'll likely have to stretch on the other end of this pit stop as well. And it's just, yeah, maybe he won't be as far back as he would have if he had just run it out and kept just running runs, but he's still not going to be in any kind of race winning position, anywhere near it really. I think just that slow first run he had, if he wasn't pushing really. He slowly got up to Kanata, barely got by him by the end of that run for those guys, and it just, I don't know. Anybody can be the Monday morning quarterback. It really just depends on what goes on here. We'll have to wait and see. It's tough to call Cisco because, again, he's been running slow times. He's been running, I guess, enough to make up some fuel, I guess, and try and stretch it out to about just one pit stop left from here. It's a really interesting strategy. If he can make it work to where he only has to pit the one more time, he's in the clear, I think, at least to get a decent position out of this. But everybody else behind him has to pit as well, and they've got better tires here. He might have to pit twice. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to come down to strategy and how well those pit stops do go, because if you have an issue on pit road, that'll hurt you as well. But Riley Thompson continuing to stay out in his prancing horse 488. The number 283 is definitely had an interesting day. Started 15th right now, running first. So as far as that goes, the Twitchmobile doing decently, and Riley streaming his point of view over on Twitch. Not quite sure, but I'm sure if you look up iRacing on the on Twitch under game, you'll come across his stream fairly easily. So keep an eye out for that if you do want to tune into Riley Thompson's point of view here from his car. But nonetheless, Thompson, we're basically sitting, I feel like a vulture in a way, Andrew, because we're sitting over here watching going, I don't know, because he's heading up the hill right now and heading towards Cluster Call and eventually the carousel. But we're just waiting to see if we see that sputter before anywhere near Danger Hove. He's toast. But if he can get at least through about halfway on the Danger Hove under power, he should be good. He'll still run out of gas, but if he can make it all the way, that'll be huge as far as fuel strategy for everybody else to take notes.
Yeah, if he can make it work again, he's almost in a catbird seat where he really did something huge here, and he'll be able to run a little bit harder the rest of the race because he only has that one extra pit stop, and he can take maybe a shorter stop there if he can run out further here. Anyways, it's going to be interesting to see how it all works out. I say that a lot, but really, we just have to wait and see what these guys do because, you know, we can sit here and contemplate all day long, Cisco, but realistically, it's rare that we ever get it 100% right. So, you know, no matter how many scenarios we go through in our heads and you know, in voice on the broadcast, something is going to be different more than likely, if not just entirely different. As we watch Riley Thompson here, you know, through the back half of the track now, just trying to take it one more lap, take it 16 more miles, and you know, if we break that into NASCAR terms, that's you know, what, 32 times around Bristol? that you're talking about here, that's not
Yeah.
just that's not just any short feat to do. That's 32 extra laps at Bristol or Martinsville, or you talk about Daytona. It's something like, I think, 6-7 more laps, and it doesn't work out.
And now through Flatscarton, now as I pick up on the notes where we are on track, and that's literally how it is. I have about 5 pieces of paper lined out at my keyboard with all the track corners, or not, the main corners kind of laid out and named so I can kind of figure out where we are, because you definitely lose your place at this track. But now Stefan Beloff coming up here, and yeah, the other problem is all these corner names are in German as well, so that's not helping us either way. So Riley Thompson right now, though, starting to work his way through up towards the Dongerhove once again, and second the mini carousel this time, and that means we're only a couple corners away from the Dongerhove, and where we're assuming the 283 is going to be able to head down pit road and get service to his Ferrari. It's got to be this time, but as he makes the long right-hand sweeper onto the long straightaway here, and you're on the power here, so unless he's saving, we're expecting to see probably a top speed of about 170, so we'll have to see if he hits that, Andrew, because if he's doing that, he's probably at full speed, and it's looking like he is at full speed.
And he's probably had it in high gear for a little while now, probably short shifted up into high gear and has left it there in 6th for a while, just trying to save that little bit. Short shifting helps. And now as he heads up into the last few corners of the circuit, you can see behind him, maybe with the right shot, you can see Pahala closing in, as he has actually now gotten by Puhaka. So a big move there. Palaha, I believe, actually, in 2nd place. So as we watch Thompson now, he's coming up to the pit lane. He has to be coming in here.
Yes, he is.
And he is, okay.
It would be insane to try and stretch two. One was let alone enough, but there you have it. Riley Thompson, 8 laps on 1 stint, so keep your crew chiefs, keep their notebook out here. But nonetheless, he's going to head down pit road, and Antti is taking over the lead now. The 37 back where he was, and his teammate, Ocean Puhaka, right now running in 2nd. If you find ourselves butchering these Finnish names and want to correct us, let us know in the comments so that we can hopefully get that sorted out for next time, because Ocean usually doesn't run this series. He usually runs the European split, but due to the Finnish Sim Racing Championship, he's over here this evening. So interesting call, but nonetheless, it's great to see him out here in the Ferraris, and the Inertia team has done an excellent job and basically been the leaders for all but one of these laps. So a very good job by that whole team. Timo Toika, meanwhile, TBR back down pit road. He didn't get all fuel in that car. Interesting call by the 46. Maybe this is the splash and go, but I'm seeing some right side damage on that car. That might have been what it was, Andrew.
I was just going to say, he's got a ton of right side damage. It looks like that's not a fuel decision, but rather just come and get the car fixed. I believe these guys have at least one fast fix, so they can get that sorted out. Yeah, they got one fast fix out here. So, you know, he was dog walking down, I believe that's, I'll say it right for the first time, Dongerhove. So he was dog walking the whole way back to the pit lane. He's got some sort of issue. I'm rewinding now to see, and it was actually, I call it NASCAR corners. There's 2 of them, I believe, here at Nurburgring, and he was in the 2nd of them, and he just got a little bit loose.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if we can wind back the camera. He already, I think, has the damage by this point, so never mind on that one. Oh, maybe that's where it is. He actually got in a little bit of a rough stuff there with it's Ross Banfield, who, after pitting, I was trying to wind back the camera to see if we could see what happened, but fortunately it doesn't quite work the way I wanted it to. But nonetheless, Toika back out and right in front of Ross Banfield, so kind of dropped himself right into a battle between. And meanwhile, Tom Stanley off to the races back and forth, but let's keep an eye on Toika and Banfield here for a little bit. Meanwhile, Claude Belval slipped into that 3rd place position, but keep an eye here, because comes Banfield in the Beamer, trying to get that 5th position away here from Timo.
And as I believe his name probably cycled throughout the ticker just a moment ago, got to bring up Cameron Dance again. He was in a big incident earlier on, wrecked really hard. He's been slowly working at just trying to get that car back into maybe the top 30, top 25, something like that. So the 409 working at it, but it's tough to do when you get that far behind. You're talking a lap at Nurburgring. That's a huge amount of time. He started 5th, and that time by he was in 6th, but now losing a ton of positions because he was just coming in to get his service to his Ferrari. So as he now gets back onto the track, he should cycle, I would guess, around into maybe 12th, 13th. That's estimating. Kanata is 11th, so then, yeah, he would currently be 12th.
Yes, he would be actually being shown 11th right now, is still in front of Michael Lane, and Simon Thorne's running into issues. The 974 down on pit road right now, so that's where he is. But yeah, it looks like Dance running 11th right now and going to be a little bit behind Josh Kanata there in that number 97. So Dance running 11th, and a decent recovery considering he had quite a bit of an incident there earlier on in the race, so great job by him. Meanwhile, the Banfield Toyka battle, it's starting to spread out a little bit, with Toyka starting to open up that gap on the Beamer a little bit. The AMG power plant coming into full effect here, but Banfield staying with him, at least for the moment.
And Cisco, another comeback that we should talk about is going to be Eric Smith. He gridded up in 3rd position tonight. He fell back, you know, he had that big wreck early on the first lap and the first handful of corners as well. And, you know, he's been just, again, the same as Cameron Dance, working at trying to get some spots back and just salvage something out of tonight. He came by the line that time in 17th. Obviously, with his pit stop here, that's going to totally change up. But he's at least working at trying to get that number 32 back into, I guess, consideration as far as being relevant. He's been working at it really good, and you know, the Mercedes isn't looking too bad at this point. Obviously, he took his fast fix early after his incident, and now he's getting back after it in that 32 car.
Yeah, absolutely. And buttoning up another story we talked about earlier, Thomas Peterson, still in the 28th position, has come down pit road and made his pit stop so far, but the 956 not really. A little bit of movement, was dead last earlier on in 32nd, but has moved up to 28th. But the driver in 2nd in your points overall, still not having a good go of things so far this evening, but definitely trying to pick up where he improved. Jose Babon in front of him in that Red Bull BMW, running in 27th. And because we have a little bit of time, Andrew, and because I'm evil, you and Jose had a little bit of a so-called get-together in NIS this week, didn't you?
Yeah, Thursday night in NIS fixed, he and I ended up nose to tail coming towards the first round of pit stops. So if you're not used to, I guess, NASCAR Talladega, that's around lap 40. And, you know, it was a 94-lap race, so it was still pretty early, but getting close to halfway. We were just inside the top 10, I believe, and I was just trying to get a couple of spots before the pit stop so I didn't have to pit behind so many cars. Well, I just got to run at him out of turn 4, and I had really been pressuring him until a few laps before, and I'd been able to tell that it was really starting to get to him. Well, I pulled low out of 4, got just enough of a run underneath him, and really just, you know, we made contact down into the tri-oval. He I might not have gotten the note from a spotter that I was to the inside, and so he didn't.
I knew when they came to our shop and scanned cars and went to the detail of getting that car right, I knew that it was going to be over the top, because it blew my mind just the work that went into making sure the car itself was legit. This sport has been around a long time. The competition can't be replaced, and that's what brings people back to the racetrack week in and week out.
Back live here on LSRTV and iRacing Live, thanks to the Aris DG1670, had to take another extended commercial break, so apparently we've been, yeah, it's frustrating, trust me. It's extremely frustrating, but we'll be radio here for a little bit before we get a picture back, because the Nurburgring takes forever to load and we wanted to be back as soon as we could. But Andrew Cardinale still in the server, and one thing I was just going to interrupt you while you were in the middle of your story. Timo Toyka ran into some issues. Were you able to figure out what happened?
He ended up manually disconnecting. I'll go back and try and find exactly what happened to him. Obviously, we saw him come in for that pit stop. He got back on the track just in front of Ross Banfield. So I'm just going to watch his lap in full here, but fast-forwarded, because I actually didn't catch it as I was talking about my incident with Pabon there, but all good between he and I as I watch what happens here with Toyka. But yeah, I really didn't see what happened, so that's a good call. I'll watch it now as Mike Kelly actually comes over the radio. And I mean, obviously this is a 16-mile margin that we're working with here again, so I'll work with this as quickly as I can. But other than that, really nothing has gone on in your absence, Cisco. Just, you know, the stops fully cycling out where Antti took over the lead once more, and Osain,
maybe?
We'll go with that. Either way, Puhaka gets back into second place as Claude Belval takes over third. So those guys were just settling out. Thompson has settled into sixth, so still a big run for him. Started 15th, now into the sixth spot as we wait for what happens here with Toika. Haven't even caught up to it yet. Actually, there it is. All right, so I can kind of run down this play-by-play. I like it. Comes over the hill. I don't know which section this is, but I can go to my handy little cheat sheet that Cisco gave me. This is just past the 5-kilometer mark. I don't want to even try to pronounce that, quite honestly, but Cisco, you can probably, I guess, read it off.
5 kilometers is Swedish Cross?
Yes, that is the one. And he just comes over the hill, ends up pretty much, I guess if you can think back to Canadian Tire, coming over one of the hills and the downhill left-handers, just gets a little bit too far into the grass, just kind of like you might at Canadian Tire. Just gets into the grass, loses control, because at that point you have no control of the car, just no front grip, considering you're on slicks, and you're just going to keep sliding. Ends up getting into some of the red and white Armco, slides back across the track, through a gravel trap into some more guardrail, really hard that time, and that just ends up doing him in. I'm not sure if he even got back to the pits, but yeah, it's just he was in front of Ross Banfield and just had that big issue through Schwedencross.
Well, that is not good for him at all, and as we finally have the picture back here, hopefully we should stabilize out for a little bit. I took a look to see if what was in the error log, and the error log had nothing. So we'll just have to pray and hope that everything is good on the back end, at least for the next hour or so. After that, I don't care, but hopefully for the next hour or so, we're going to be good to the end. But if we don't, we'll try and get it back as soon as possible. But your top two still the inertia cars, and since it basically was that point, we'll walk you through your iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game with professionally organized racing from NASCAR, IndyCar, IMSA, the World of Outlaws, Global Rally, Cross, Cars Tour, and many more. Right now, as they run, Antti Filaha, as we're going to get yelled at for about the 1000th time, and that's the incorrect way to pronounce that. Currently your leader, Osain Puhaka, right now running second. Third, Claude Belval. Fourth to Tom Stanley. Ross Banfield still ahead of Riley Thompson, was able to get by Riley while Cisco's internet decided to explode. Seventh to Mike Kelly. Eighth to Brandon Whitworth. Ninth to Cameron Dance, and Joshua Kanata rounding out your top 10.
And we noted the battle with Michael Lane, and I actually forget who he was battling with. It totally just left my mind as soon as I thought about it. But either way, he has settled into 11th position. Mark Lossing in 12th. Carl Burke, who we talked about a little while ago, he's 13th. Andy Banfield, we've talked about him quite a bit tonight. Still got a pretty clean car. A couple more dents on it now. He is in 14th. Lonnie Fitch, who we've mentioned, has had some troubles thus far. Currently in 15th. Randy Ludwig in 16th. Simon Thor in 17th. Eddie Hawks in 18th. Starting to build on his run. Then Jerry Forkolb in 19th, and Eric Smith on his comeback run in 20th.
And you have Rory Collins running 21st, 22nd to Gary Nichols, Terry Wellman running 23rd, 24th to Marshall Williams, 25th to Jason Wallet, 26th to Thomas Peterson. Remember, came into tonight, was only 5 points off of Mike Kelly. That's definitely going to change coming out of the Nurburgring. Jose Pabon running 27th, 28th to Timo Toika. Remember, Andrew was able to chronicle that accident that he had earlier on. Terry Halleck 29th. Julian Huxley running 30th, Eric Klein 31st, and Michael Lightly running 32nd. That's your 32-car field here. 3 Ferraris in the top 5, and that has been your iRacing Midway Race Break. For more information on the wide variety of sim racing possibilities online, you can visit iRacing.com to sign up today, where you can visit iRacing.com/membership even, and use the promo code they have, PR-GRC, and several more different promo codes out there for your opportunity to start your iRacing iRacing career for cheap with 3 months only $5. That's promo code PR-GRC for new members only. As Forkolb running into some issues here, he's falling down the order. Andrew, what happened?
Well, Jerry Forkolb just came through. I'm not even sure where on the track this is. Actually, this is just before the 4-kilometer mark in the circuit. Gets a little bit of the grass.
Yep.
Yeah, gets a little bit of the grass on the outside of the bend and just right into the guardrail real hard. And that car at that point is just completely out of control, careening out of control, if you will. Comes back on the track and was lucky to hang on to it for a bit there and not completely clean out. I believe that might have been Eric Smith. Yeah, that was Eric Smith behind him. On his comeback run, so lucky to not clean him out, and just the 676. There we go. Just having some issues. Yeah, that pretty much his night over. Yeah, it's pretty damaged.
Not good for the 676, and with that, Jerry's gonna put it on pit road here and get some major repairs to that Audi R8. But as it sits right now, we talked about at the top of the show the Ferraris being the king here at the ring, and it's something that I was expecting we were going to have a Mercedes kind of day, and based on the European split, it was even looking like we were going to have a Beamer kind of day. But apparently that is not the case, because the Prancing Horse, king of the castle right now for your top three. Tom Stanley, your first car that's not a Prancing Horse, running fourth in his Audi R8. And then Ross Banfield in the Beamer running fifth. And as we documented, Riley Thompson came down earlier, made that late pit stop with 8 laps into his stint, running 6th, then 7th to Mike Kelly. One interesting note, Osin Puaka might have just run into issues here. He's back on pit road, Andrew.
I wouldn't say this is issues at all. I'd say this is relatively planned. Yeah. And with his planned, well, not planned stop, but unplanned stop 3 laps into the event earlier on, due to that black flag, this actually is no surprise to me. This is 3 laps past when the leaders came in before. So now Ozian on the pit lane as Mark Lossing has an issue. He loses connection to the server, but Puhaka will now exit the pit lane, get back at it in that 16, probably going to lose around 3 or 4 spots. I would assume back to about 6th position. I think that's where he'll settle in. Mike Kelly in 7th, I think, is just too far behind. Meanwhile, I do want to mention actually Cameron Dance. This guy has been on a tear since getting back on the track. He is in 9th position after having his wreck earlier on. But do want to again mention that Lossing is done for the day, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to have to get that car back loaded, but either way, Lossing out of this race. The 7-43 started 19th and is going to wind up way in the back here, so not the night he was looking for. That'll add Eric Klein, also, who has disconnected as well and pulled that car behind the wall. Not sure what happened in the 542, but he's gone. Michael Lightly has also taken his car to the garage, and Mark Lossing going to join those ranks as well. So Puaka comes down pit road, so if we break out the old calculator, and Sean Ambrose, who's in our comment section, probably getting ready for when GSRC brings us the Pacific split of this race later today, he can break out the calculator as well. This gives Puaka about, let's say, an hour here on gas. Obviously, he's going to have to complete this lap as well, but with it being said, he's probably going to be closer to the leader. This, Andrew, at this point, can he make an hour on fuel?
Oh yeah, he's going to make it, I think. You know, we talked about an 8-lap run, or in the case of Riley Thompson, 9 laps. And right now, it's lap 11, so Puhaka would get just enough out of this run. So it actually is going to work out for him, oddly enough. It's almost like he ran this race in reverse, if you will, because really, I think now that we're kind of seeing this thing play out, I think they would have been pitting with just about 3 or 2 to go.
Yeah.
So this is going to work out pretty nicely for Puhaka, actually. And I was actually a skeptic just a few laps ago, which was really almost a half hour ago. But I didn't think it was going to work out this nicely for him, but it looks like it will. He's going to run this race out from here on this tank. At least he should. Meanwhile, everyone else on this track still should have to make a pit stop.
So things could work out despite the black flag to start things off here at the ring. Osin Puaka could be in position to take back over the lead. We'll just have to see. Obviously, we mentioned the lap times. He got passed by his teammate at the same speed while on track, but was on older tires. So we'll have to see how things are going to work out there. But either way, Antti continues to lead. Claude Belval running second in the driver out of Canada. Meanwhile, running in third out of the UK and Ireland, Tom Stanley not quite in the same position of dominance that he was in at COTA, but nonetheless, Tom Stanley once again proving that he's a master of road courses. At least he's showing right now, and definitely having an excellent race here today in your highest running Audi by miles, because with Eric Klein falling out, actually, him, Jerry Forkolb, and Eric Klein are the only 3 Audis in the actual session. So Tom basically the sole torch holder for Audi at the moment, as the other 2 have run into issues.
Yeah, it's a really good run so far for the Peregrine Audi, and I think he's got this thing wrapped up at least far as a decent run here. Even if he was to disconnect now, you'd still have to consider it a pretty good run for Tom Stanley, at least to this point. But I think he's in a really good position to close this thing out for a top 5, if not better. He's not all that far in terms of the Nurburgring, not all that far behind Claude Belval, so if something happens to the 56, maybe a little bit of damage that starts hindering his performance, you never know, we could be talking about a 3rd place battle between Belval and Stanley. But right now Belval actually has a really good grip on this machine. I think the 3rd Ferrari in line, and really, you know, we talk about this manufacturer battle, Cisco, and how I think we both expected just different manufacturers to be dominating. I kind of expected the Beamer to maybe have a presence. You expected the Mercedes. The first of either of those manufacturers is going to be Ross Banfield in 5th, and then you have to go back to Mike Kelly for the first Mercedes. So three Mercedes rather in the top 3. These guys are just on a tear, and of course, you know, driver just straight up skill and speed is going to sometimes outrule manufacturer advantages or disadvantages, but really I think you have to look at maybe the Ferrari being the dominant GT3 car moving forward.
It'll be interesting to see, and of course, you know, the aspects of the Nürburgring are bespoke to the Nürburgring. You know, the same things that make it fast here, while the gearing does favor the Ferrari, that may not necessarily be the case in other tracks, like a Spa-Francorchamps, or where we're going to be going for the opening round of the World Endurance Championship, or, you know, all the leagues that'll be running the equivalent to that. So that'll be something to take note of, but no, the Ferrari definitely showing as the newbie of the bunch here right now on track. And keep in mind, we're not even counting the Ford GT, which we had no entries, nor the McLaren MP412C GT3. So both those cars getting no entries whatsoever, but the Ferrari right now, like I said, king of the castle, and Andrew definitely impressing me out here. This is the first opportunity I've seen the Ferrari GT3 out here in this VLN style, you know, a bunch of cars, throw them on the Nordschleife and go sort of deal. So Antti doing an excellent job showcasing the speed out of the prancing horse, as is Claude Belval. So something to take note of, not to mention Riley Thompson and Ossian Puhaka as well. But nonetheless, running through as well, and what we can do here for a lap, because we have a little bit of time, and because I've been wanting to kind of fold in commercial breaks, but apparently Eris has been kind of formatting them for me, what we're going to do. Oh, yeah, as Tapani Leonluto, we'll get that right. I think I got it close, but he'll correct me here in the comments. Ossian's tire wear up to coming down pit road. I think, Andrew, that's the reason why he was slow. 20% on the front tires.
Well, that would explain it. Looks like he didn't change his tires when he came in for that black flag, so that explains why he was having some issues pushing up to the front. Definitely makes a lot of sense now. 20% remaining, that, yeah, that's going to be an
double
issue.
Stinting's going to be definitely, that's a catch-22 if you're doing that.
Yeah, maybe, I guess these guys could maybe do it coming to the end of the race since they have just a short pit from there on, but really, I think that's just too risky, especially considering you're at the end, you get in a battle, you don't want to be lacking that front grip that you need to make moves. So, you know, I look at it just the same as a restrictor plate race for myself, just being from NASCAR. At the end, I want the ability to make moves and get positions if I need to, so I want that extra grip to be able to make those moves. I think you have to kind of consider this to be the same way. You want that grip at the end of the race.
Yeah, you do, and down at the foot of the Nürburgring GP course here, and heading up the hill now, that was the Dunlop hairpin, and now into the Schumacher S we go. You see the sign makes it a little bit easier, but what we can do now is, because we don't really have too many super close battles right now, our closest gap I'm looking at, Josh Kanata and Michael Lane, that's for your 10th and 11th drivers right now. You can see they're kind of in the same sort of screen there, but until we get somebody a little bit closer, what we can do is kind of follow along with Auntie a little bit and see if we can suss out a little bit, and you can hang along with us here as we go around the Nurburgring, coming through the Ravenel Bend right now and into the Bilstein Bend here at the the Grand Prix Stroika here, and through the S there, the NGK chicane, and out onto the Nordschleife we go. And let's see, Andrew, can we follow along with where things go here? We'll be starting, keep in mind, of course, the Nordschleife start is actually at the Bilstein Bridge, but heading down through the first sections here, through the Hohenrhein, and as well out to the Hochstein as well. So we're going to kind of follow along here, and you can kind of learn the circuit with us here. But these opening bends, very signature. Everybody at least makes it through these corners. It's about here when we first see the cars sliding off and crashing in the Yanko. At least that's what I usually do when I'm driving. That's why I don't drive anymore.
Well, that's actually exactly what happened earlier on in the event. I forget who it was. It was either it wasn't Cameron Dance. It was the other Eric Smith. That's right, the 32. He went off early. So now I believe we're heading towards, let's see. I'm learning this track with any viewers that aren't familiar with it, so I think we're getting close to
this is now going to be
3 kilometer marks.
Yeah, this is going to be Flugplatz here.
Okay, so we went further. All right.
And then that kind of gives me an idea. Here, this is Fiedisch Cross.
So, okay.
So, very high corner, and then hard on the brakes into Armberg here. You have this long sweeper. You go under the Yokohama Bridge here, and that's a very interesting corner because Fiedisch Cross, you're basically taking that flat out. And that is a very tough corner, and we head down through here through the Fuschiora. And I said that. I completely butchered that. But then into Metzgerfield here, coming up over the hill. And yeah, this gets a little bit interesting. Into the corner we go now, and Adenauer Forst here as well. Not marked onto the list, but coming up to the Metzgerfield as well as we come down the hill. But very tricky track here. I equated to a rally stage, and what's cool is you can see off to the mountains, off to your right-hand side a little bit. You caught a glimpse of stuff we're going to see later on. Here's the Metzgerfield right now, hard left-hander, and it's easy to tell because the main kind of indicators we have for where you are on track are where those tire barriers are, Andrew.
Yeah, and really I have to look towards the kilometer signs. We just passed the 8 kilometer mark, so that'll be Collinhard, I believe, that we're getting into now. So that's what I have to look out for, is those white and blue kilometer marks along the circuit. Again, I'm definitely from NASCAR, and so when it comes to this, I'm just completely lost, but I'm definitely doing my best to follow along. I think my last true experience with this circuit was Forza 4, so you try and figure that one in. But anyways, as we move on, I believe we're getting close to Wursteifen.
Yeah, this will actually be Exmühl here as we'll head into the town. You see kind of the off to the side there, that little bit of a segment there, plus you see the wall, so into Exmühl we go. Then out of the town here, and now we get to this very, very, very fast kind of uphill section of the racetrack. And coming up, you start to get to the point here when you're heading up towards the carousel, and yeah, you kind of have to switch back a little bit, and we're going to come down. This actually might be Exmühl. I might have messed things up a little bit myself, but coming up now, there's another, that's the 11 kilometer mark, so we're actually where I thought we were. So into Bergwerk here, going to come up, and I think we just got past it actually, but nonetheless, up the hill, and this is a very fast section, Andrew. A lot of fast S's. You have to be, especially if we were dealing with lap traffic. That's 12 kilometers, by the way. If you're dealing with lap traffic, this is a very hard place to pass it because it's a very single lane part of the racetrack here. As we'll actually flash back. We'll go to Riley Thompson here and kind of flash back because he's caught up with Ross Banfield. So we'll keep an eye on these two, but heading through this section of the track, we've kind of forwarded back a little bit to the 8 kilometer mark here just to kind of note where we are on the circuit. But let's watch these two a little bit.
Yeah, and we got to that point, about 12 kilometer mark, that I kind of recognized the track, but now we're going back. A bit of a review, I guess, if we consider this a lesson in the Nurburgring.
There is a test at the end of this, in case you were worried.
I certainly wouldn't pass, but actually Ross Banfield gets in, definitely did not get the entry to that bit as he wanted, was definitely on the curbing there, so a good save by him to get through there without issue. But now as we come into the town, Riley Thompson's still trying to chase down Ross Banfield, and this battle will be a lot of fun to watch because these guys are on different pit strategies. Granted, you know, it may be a 16-mile difference, but it's only 1 lap in difference between their strategies. So, you know, Riley Thompson has that 1 lap newer tires, but in this case, it's really not mattering what I'm seeing so far, even though that's some 160 corners.
And apparently, where we went through the town, there used to be a mill there, and that's the town of Adenau, which we mentioned the Adenau Forest there going into the town. That's why that corner is called as such. It's not on here, so you don't have to. That one's extra credit. So remember that if you want to get some points back. But Riley Thompson right now starting to lose Ross Banfield a little bit. We head up the hill, and this is a very tough place to pass. You can make passes here if you're Max Benecke and like 2 other people, but you can make passes up here. It's very challenging, though, and it's a very fast section of the course.
Yeah, I don't think I would ever be able to, I guess, if you want to quote a certain streamer, I actually forget who it was, but basically the testicular fortitude to come in here and make passes, I wouldn't be able to. I would never have the ability, and I forget who that was, maybe Empty Box who said that?
Yeah, I believe so, but this was, that was Cluster Tall. There as we head up to now what is the most famous corner at the Nurburgring, the Carousel and the banked corner.
The NASCAR corner.
Yes, the NASCAR corner. There's 2 on this racetrack. We'll hit the mini carousel later on, but you leave there, and then it's another kind of bit. This kind of becomes more of a rally stage because you have more curbs, and the undulation change is a little bit more pronounced than it used to be kind of going up the hill. And you see a lot more curbs here, and all of a sudden you have to be very aware of where you are on the racetrack and making sure you're hitting your exit apex correctly, and you're making sure you're not getting lost or going too fast, because otherwise it's very easy to put the Onco barrier like right there off to the left. I've seen plenty of cars go off into the Onco barrier there during my time with VLN, and down the hill here it's a very challenging section. We'll get to the point here. You'll see the cars actually catch a little bit of air here coming up with one of the hills here coming up.
And now I'm a little bit lost as far as where we are, but I do want to mention my analogy of a hill climb must not have been too far off, because these guys really are just, you mentioned the switchbacks a little while ago, you just got to really be on it, and you have these elevation changes where you come up over some hills, and I'm sure...
Air, and now, bam.
Yeah, and that can actually happen in a few different places, I believe, but that's probably the biggest one. But you come over these sections, and we probably don't have to mention it to too many viewers tuning in today, but if we were to get into maybe some newer viewers to this kind of a thing, you have to come over those elevation changes and really control yourself as a driver, because you can't be on the throttle too much, or you're going to lose rear grip and totally wreck yourself. So these guys being very careful when they come over those hills and into the valleys, and even when you come into those little valleys as we come into the second NASCAR corner, as I call it, really, you just have to be careful that you don't hit the ground too hard. So that's a setup deal there, that you don't slam the ground too hard and damage either the rear diffuser or the front wing, whatever it may be. So these guys, obviously they know what they're doing at this point. They've run now 12 laps, so 12 times through each of these corners. Might not seem like a lot, but really that takes a toll on somebody.
And now we're on to the Dottingerhof, one of the longest straightaways in all of racing. Something interesting to note of Gallenkopf, the corner that leads on the Dottingerhof, that's actually where the former site of the gallows for the Earls of Nuremberg. So there you go. There's something to think about later on this evening.
As a pass,
side by side, yep.
Yeah, a pass being made. Riley Thompson just drafted up alongside of Ross Banfield. A great move there.
Yeah, absolutely. Riley, see what you're able to do, the Dottingerhof so long that you can get that draft and be able to make the pass like what Riley was able to do and get past the Beamer there. So Riley Thompson moves up into the 4th position. Ross Banfield falls back to 5th, and those two have kind of been switching back and forth here. So keeping an eye on those two. That gap will start to open up as Claude Belval going to decide to make his last pit stop here. Interesting. Very interesting, because if he full fuels it, he should be able to make it to the end, but maybe trying to short pit it here a little bit, maybe?
Well, you can use these tires up that middle run and then kind of just run a little more relaxed this last run. So it's not a terrible move from Claude Belval. I like it, actually, to have your, I guess, really tough and really short stint right in the middle of the race. I like that. You can kind of relax now. And granted, you know, you have to keep in mind that we're coming to the end of the race, but still, you can kind of relax at this point, get into a groove for the rest of the race. But we mentioned Dottingerhof, that long straightaway coming towards the end of the circuit. Well, the only thing that I can really think of to equate to that wouldn't even be anything in America. It would be the Mulsanne straight at Le Mans. That's the only straightaway that I can think of that even compares to that. And of course, Mulsanne now has the 2 chicanes, but take those out, and that's the only place that I can think of where you have that kind of a long straightaway like that. And really, it's a great passing opportunity as you come up the hill, because you can get that long draft coming through the valley pretty much and then back up the hill. And you saw Riley Thompson take great advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely, and we keep an eye on those two. They're almost out of the F1 area, and just something to note that kind of made me chuckle a little bit, how much smaller the Beamer is versus the Ferrari. It doesn't help that Ross Banfield has sustained some rear-end damage to that car, but it looks like a little like RC 7/8 scale car kind of following behind the Ferrari in some of these shots, so just kind of a interesting thing I noticed there. But Banfield still hanging on to the rear wing. If he could stay with Riley, he should be able to get back by him here when we get back to the Dongerhof, or maybe up the hill a little bit. So not really the call there. But I'm Jed, hopping in, another one of the GSRC guys. If it's not, is it not worth splitting the race into equal thirds? No, because mainly we saw on a full stint these guys were basically using up the tires, and if you want a double stint, you were mad. So I think tire wear, honestly, Amjad, I'd be of the mind to try and split up the stints equally, but that's not the game plan for these guys. Apparently two full fuel loads plus a little bit extra at the end to get you the rest of the way, kind of a splash and dash deal. Maybe at that point you double stint, but put that little kind of short stint wherever you want. Some of the drivers like Osin Puhaka have put it at the end, some of the drivers at the middle, some of the drivers have kind of put it at the back. But with that, we'll step aside here on LSRTV because Spectrum's cutting us off again.
A little bit here when you go through that little bump there, and then it's flat pretty much all the way through here, just about. Hard braking. This is the slowest part of the track. And then I've done, I did many races in Formula 3, Formula 2, and then I did the very last race they did there in Group C in 1983 in the 956 Porsche. That's when Beloff got the lap record at the 6:11. I think I was second on the grid with the 6:14 or something, which was, I mean, those cars were awesome around there, of course, like any car is, that speed. And this is the corner of all corners here, the Schwerenkreuz. Flat all the way into it. And then trail brake all the way into the apex here. And then hard at it again to get good speed down the hill here. Mega fast down this hill here. Just jump from one apex to the next. Gotta be super precise here. I mean, it's almost exactly like the real thing. So, I mean, it is certainly realistic enough to get past the very, a lot of the initial hurdles you have when you try to learn to drive a race car, So, I mean, I think it's an excellent tool to learn how to race for sure, or learn to drive a car on a racetrack.
If you're keeping track at home, then this graphic will make the most sense. That's 3 Eris router disconnects so far this evening. So we're still fighting it, but once again, black picture until we actually get pictures back to show you. So Cisco Scarmo's Andrew Cardinale here on LSRTV. Just about 30 minutes left to go, and sounded like we're having those last splash and dash pit stops happening right now. Andrew, what do you got?
Well, at least Tom Stanley is in. We see some more drivers coming through. I saw an orange Ferrari, which I didn't actually recall. It looks like Ross Banfield just picked up more damage. That car is really looking like a 7/8 or maybe even 3/4 car at this point. It looks like he's even having some handling issues. So Ross Banfield having some issues here, but still keeping with it. Mike Kelly now coming in. Cameron Dance still turning laps, and these guys all coming in for what should be their final pit stop of the day. I do quickly want to shout out to Amjad out there. I talked with him a little bit in the chat while Cisco was having his third issue of the race, if you were keeping count, and you know, he brought up a really good idea, I guess, as far as a strategy to cut this thing into thirds. Now, there's been some debate in the chat between he and Zapani and myself even. My thoughts are basically this. Personally, I would actually maybe think about that, cutting the race into third strategy, considering you won't have to put as much fuel in at the start, so you can run a little bit faster there. It's not quite a full fuel load. You won't have to fuel up as far as putting a whole fuel load in when you come in for each of your pit stops, considering you just put in whatever equates to 36 minutes of race time, and you know, you're on better tires more often than not. You're not running a full stint on the tires, so really it's not that bad of a strategy, considering you have to make 2 stops either way. Obviously, these guys didn't really go for that. They all went to just run it out an hour and then another hour and then just run it out from there, unless you're one of the guys who had a pit stop early on, like Ocean Puhaka or, you know, whatever have you, Cameron Dance, you know, so on and so forth. Unless you're one of those guys, you're running an hour anyways. But I think that's not a bad strategy. If you're out in the chat, definitely let us know what you think. I know Tapani and Amjad are doing their fair share of that, but what do you think, Cisco?
It comes down to how long it takes to actually put on that set of tires, because with Tapani saying it taking about 30 seconds, you have to look at what the tire wear, and that's really going to depend per driver what tire wear you're looking at. So if it's somebody who's been on the sim for a very long time and knows how to save tires, like in Ocean or someone, you know, one of our like 5,000 iRating guys, it's probably going to be worth it, as Huxley looks like big moment for him, actually, the 322. We'll take a second look at that. But if you're one of these guys who goes through tires like candy, it's not going to be worth it. You may as well come down and maybe split it more so that it benefits your tire. It really comes down to how you're going to drive this race. But taking a look at the replay right now with Julian Huxley, just got way out of the gas. He was very loose and just let those 2 cars right by him. And that was Lonnie Fitch and Simon Thorns actually going by Julian there.
Yeah, it was a big moment, and I called it out to you in the chat there, but I was watching this battle, and I was going to say at the end of your statement that this was the best battle I thought on the track, and then something just happened to Huxley. Again, looks like he got loose out of one of those corners there. Again, I'm totally new to this track still, so I'm not even sure which one, but Huxley had a big moment. He got out of it. Now he falls well behind Simon Thorns, but the good news is if he can maybe make up a little bit more time on Thorns throughout this lap, if they don't come in right here, he can try and pull a bit of a draft down the Dottinger Hove, yeah, that's it. Coming back around, he can try and get some draft there. We'll see what he can do. Huxley has run a pretty good race, granted a little bit off pace, but has kept that car in pretty decent shape, given that it's the Nurburgring, and you know, the Mercedes isn't always the most apt vehicle to get a lot of forward bite. So he's been doing all right in that 322. Back up to the lead will be Ansi P. I forget how to. Bohala. Yeah, anyway, he's actually going by Jose Pabon. That was a big moment there. Jose was just slow, and I think Jose might have just wrecked.
We'll take a second look at it on the replay here, but Andrew's friend, Jose Pabon, may have run into issues here. Slight ding at him a little bit there, but...
He definitely ran into issues. He just ran wide.
Oh, up the hill, yeah.
So you were mentioning it earlier, some of those cars come up the hill and just around that bend and head up off in the guardrail, and that's exactly what happens to Pabon right there.
First hairpin, so he goes into the Onco, and to make matters worse, the leader was catching him This is not a good place to have that happen to you at all, because
there's only one groove.
Yeah, there's not even, you know, so he's kind of staying right a little bit, trying to get that car back up to speed, and just trying to stay left. The leader comes in here, and yeah, you could see Anti go all the way, take the long way around the carousel, which you never want to do, but that could have been way worse. But good job by Jose to get out of the way, and a great job by Anti Pilaja to get by him there. So I'm still waiting on Tapane to give us the cheat sheet on how to pronounce that, because I know he knows it. He's just not telling us, because
yeah, I'm still trying to not screw it up as he gets some air there. I think it's Pilaja.
Let's just wait for the comments to tell us.
Yeah,
it's probably gonna be better than anything we butcher together. So
yeah, it's rough. It's rough. But
it's been a rough race for us between Eris and between the names and everything. It's been rough, but we're making a go of it. 28 minutes left to go here, so not long actually left in the race here. Probably going to be seeing a lot of the splash and dash pit stops to happen, Andrew, before the end of this thing, though.
Well, we were saying it's been rough for us. Someone who it's been really rough for has been Cameron Dance. But Cameron Dance, despite all of his issues, is 5th.
No, he's 4th now.
Is he now listed as 4th? That is insane. So he got by... who did he get by to get that spot?
I don't know if you have Belval listed or Stanley.
No, I think it was Tom Stanley coming in the pit that lost all that time to him. Because now Tom Stanley, yeah, he's behind Belval, who is behind Cameron Dance. So Mike Kelly also came into the pit lane, so he is not 6th as he was as he came out by the line. So it's Cameron Dance, then Belval, and Stanley. So that's the running order there. But just insane run for Cameron Dance. This is what I expected out of Puhaka. That's what I expected out of Puhaka, but earlier on. Now Puhaka, of course, is in 3rd, so no worries there, but that's what I expected, or no, 2nd actually. He's now back into the runner-up spots, but that's what I expected earlier on from Puhaka, to just run up through the field and suddenly end up being back in the battle, but a top 5 on hand now for Cameron Dance is just insane.
Yeah, absolutely. Dance catching a little bit of air there as well, but what a recovery for him. That is a monumental effort by him, and a monumental effort as well by Ocean Puhaka, who, keep in mind, you know, it kind of worked out for him strategy-wise, but this could have gone a whole lot worse, and it's kind of a good thing, you know, he got that black flag as early as he did, because if it had come out later, it would have been big issues.
Well, yeah, but you also have to consider maybe that just would have helped him run just 2 runs at that point if he had saved gas. It's tough to speculate, though, because really we didn't know what was going to go on when he had that penalty. We didn't know what was going to happen. I think you were the closest to being right, though, Cisco, between the two of us. Ended up working out pretty nicely for him, you know, everything considered. Obviously, he's not going to win likely at this point. He, I guess, still could, but it's not looking likely as his inertia teammate is still leading. Anti Pilaja, it's either been Pilaja out in the lead or Puhaka. So, I mean, these guys have led the entire race, aside from, I think, that one lap that Riley Thompson got. And he did it staying out for a lap over the 37 of Anti. So aside from that, it's been these two out front for the entirety of this race, and really it's been Anti all race, and we haven't really given him the credit for that. We had a couple of dominant runs last time out at Coda, and we gave them tons of credit. Really, we've kind of just been talking about the strategy battle. We haven't had enough time to give Anti the credit he deserves for just leading this race and not having any issues, even when he had, I forget who it was. It was the 46, that's right, it was the 46 of Timu Toika who was on his back end for a lot of the early laps there at the start of this race, and anything could happen there. One mistake and Pilaja could have lost the lead, but he didn't make that mistake and he kept the lead, and he has done a phenomenal job.
Yeah, he has, and another guy, you know, Anti's done a fantastic job, and another one who, you know, we weren't sure about was Riley Thompson. Remember, he stayed out with an 8-lap strategy call on that first pit stop, and we were like, we don't know if he's going to be able to make it. He was able to make it, so 8 laps on a stint longer than I think anybody else went, and made it work. So also a great job by the 283 to rally up to that 3rd place position. Still waiting on him to make that final splash and go, but an excellent job by Riley Thompson to make the strategy work his way as well.
And another driver that's up in the front that isn't really getting credit at this point would be Brandon Whitworth, who started out in 13th spot, kind of fell back for a little while, and now has been making his run back up to the front, the 377, who won in the GT3 class at the Circuit of the Americas, is currently running 9th, I believe, unless it's changed in the last 16 miles, which likely has, is doing a pretty good job.
We're good.
All right, so 9th position has held on to that in the 377, looking to come home with a pretty big run. I think that's a pretty fantastic deal for him, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And Whitworth is kind of in the points battle here. We'll take a look at that because we have a little bit of time we can do so. Looking at the points coming into tonight, obviously we documented. Mike Kelly came in here. He's running 8th right now. He came in here the points leader. Thomas Peterson trying to rally what he can. We see him there. He's running 23rd right now, still not where he needs to be. David Wilson, looking through, I don't think he's even here, at least in this particular split. So he's not there. Then we got Brandon Whitworth, who's running in 9th. We just documented right there. And then behind him, Joshua Kanata, you know, the furthest back in 5th at the moment. He's 38 points back. Then Carl Burke, who did not have, actually he's had a decent race, but not great. But your top 5, kind of all over the place right now. But the one thing to note, Mike Kelly ahead of everybody. He's racing in this points battle right now, at least within your top 5 or so. So things looking up for Kelly coming out of the Nurburgring and extending that points gap from 5 to a bunch here leaving the race.
Yeah, Thomas Peterson, we've talked about his issues all race long. He's back there at 23rd, so it's gotten better than being shotgun on the field in 30 seconds. So that's a big gain for him when you talk about just that bit of a, I guess, an improvement, as it looks like Fort Kolb is calling it a day. He might have already done that. But anyways, back to the points battle. Peterson going to lose a lot of ground here, but that's only going to open it up to possibly Brandon Whitworth. I'm not sure on the exact points, I guess, payouts here in the major series, but you know, as we get to some of the closer, or I guess other races that are just other wild cards, at least in comparison to this race here at the Nurburgring and last time out at COTA, a bit different. I believe we have Indy coming up, the Indy 500. I believe. I could be wrong there, so correct me if I'm wrong there, Cisco, because I don't have the schedule in front of me. I believe we have that coming up, and then the World 600 as well. So I believe those are coming up. Those will be a couple of big events that are really going to shake things up in the points.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at the upcoming schedule, it will be the World 600 will be the next race here for us. That'll be on May 20th, 2018. Of course, coverage across the whole, the iRacing Live networks, LSRTV, GSRC, V8S Online, and RaceSpot TV. And then on June 3rd, it'll be the Indy 500 as well for the major series. So the World 600 actually coming up next. And for me, that definitely leans toward Mike Kelly being in the best position, because coming out of this race where it could have been, you know, if Thomas Peterson had a good race here, he would have still been fighting Mike. But if Mike can have a good finish here at the Nürburgring, that bodes well, because he could extend that points lead at Charlotte.
And someone else that actually comes to mind, because I've raced them in NIS, and this is not Jose Pabon. No, not going to get into that again. No, it's actually Jason Wallet, who I haven't mentioned aside from calling him out on the grid today. He started in 31st, one of the last 2 cars on the grid, now into 20th. Has just had a nice quiet day. That car is in great condition. I don't think he's even used his fast fixes. I haven't seen him really in any incidents, but Jason Wallet, you know, he's, I believe, one of the other NASCAR guys that is in this group. So, you know, he might be one to watch out for when we head to Charlotte for the that NASCAR run of the World 600. So that could be interesting to watch. Jason Wallet maybe getting some points. I'm not even sure where he comes in, but I know it's not necessarily in the top few spots, so that could be a big boost for him if he can run well at Charlotte.
Yeah, and another driver I'm going to be looking out for at Charlotte's going to be Riley Thompson as well, and we'll have to see how he does out there on the oval. But the 2 teammates right now, 2 Finns leading the way here at the Nürburgring, and looks like Rory Collins heading down pit road right now, Andrew, and he's going to get his splash and dash stop out of the way.
Yeah, the 35 of Rory Collins pits out at the 19th position. He'll get service to his vehicle, and actually Terry Wellman coming over the mic. I'm not sure what's going on there, but we can take a look maybe, as he's actually following up. Let's find out. That's Brandon Whitworth, actually, and that's not for position. Brandon Whitworth is 9th, whereas Terry Wellman is 27th, so that's a lap in between those 2. But they'll continue on, and I'm not sure what went on there. Just saw that Wellman popped up on the mic, and, you know, was something to maybe look out for, and I believe actually he was maybe just guiding Whitworth by him as Whitworth made that pass. So just, you know, lap traffic coming into effect. Thankfully, it was pretty easy for Whitworth to get by. It's actually now Ross Banfield is very slow.
Yeah, we're going to have to wind back the camera and see if we can figure out what happened to the Beamer. Definitely seeing a little bit more damage on that car than before. There he goes.
And that's a hard hit to the Armco. Not too bad. Oh.
Yeah, he got him. He got him. That's a huge hit for Whitworth there. And yeah, Banfield now going to finally tow that car to pit road, so we can wind back now and see what happened, but that was not good. That was very ungood. And yeah, all right, here we go. This will give us an idea. So this is coming down, and yeah, just gets loose coming out of the town of Armberg, and just gets into, that was actually our points leader, Mike Kelly. He kind of spun off the nose of, I think he lost it before Mike got to him. We'll wind it back one more time. That camera's not going to help us. How about this one? Yeah, no, he got the curb, got into the outside curb, and just got too much graft right into Mike Kelly. That couldn't have been a whole lot worse. That could have been a whole lot worse for Kelly, but luckily wasn't terrible. So he gets the car back going, and by then we saw what happened when the cars we were with kind of caught up to Banfield here, and we'll just take a chopper look at this, and that was nasty there, Andrew.
Yeah, and really, Mike Kelly was lucky to not quite dodge the bullet, but get through there in the state that he did. He didn't get too tore up. And you also have to look at Terry Wellman, who could have really gotten messed up in that incident, and thankfully didn't. You know, he's 2 laps down, just been trying to salvage a day. Definitely could have been worse, though, as he got clipped by the rear end of Banfield, who just backed up a little too early. Maybe should have waited a little bit longer. But, you know, Wellman got by, lost the trunk of his car, weirdly enough, but nothing else.
Yeah, Wellman, though, back in 27th right now, so not having a great day, but yeah, definitely some, you could see the damage on the 24 car. That is not good at all. And as for us, Banfield, what looked to be a promising day is going to end possibly on the rollback here. It will be an extended pit stop for him to get the damage repaired, but unfortunately for him, not the way he wanted it to go. You can, let's take a look at Mike Kelly's car. You can see the damage on that car as well. It's not terrible, but it's there, so it'll be definitely something we'll keep an eye on here in the closing stages with about 17 minutes to go.
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying. You know, if you're going to have that incident happen, if you're Mike Kelly, that's one of the best ways it can happen. He didn't really get too tore up. I think he should still have some decent front downforce without the front wing getting too compromised. It looks like it still seals off relatively nicely, at least on the left side. So it should still be okay for the number 3 car of Mike Kelly. But, you know, at this point, he's going to gain a ton of points over second place Thomas Peterson. And, you know, granted, that's only a 1 lap difference. They're, I don't know how many minutes apart, so there's not going to be any way they're going to, I guess, catch each other at this point, I don't think, unless Mike Kelly has a real big issue. So Mike Kelly should still be in the clear as far as extending his points lead, at least by a little bit, over guys like Brendan Whitworth and Thomas Peterson. He shouldn't have any issue, I guess, hanging on to that points lead, but he is going to have to start worrying about, as we head into maybe more of his comfort zone as we get to the ovals, like you mentioned, him being one of the favorites going to Charlotte for the World 600. He's got to capitalize on that opportunity, as well as the Indy.
Yeah, absolutely. And after that, it's going to be the classic British Grand Prix using the Lotus 79. So that's going to be completely different as well, but something to note of as well down the road a little bit. That will be in July on the 15th. So Mike Kelly continuing out there, though. That car, you know, worse for wear, but still making laps. Riley Thompson was able to get away from that action there without too much incident. And actually, I'm not sure. I thought it was at Silverstone, but or Silverstone is your technically, yes, it is Silverstone Historic. It's going to be the classic British Grand Prix, but that's in July, so we don't have to worry too much about that. Still got plenty of racing action here with just under 15 minutes to go, and now's the point to where we get the old map out, because we have to figure out, are these guys going to go 2 or 3 laps here to end this thing? Because when the timer runs out, if they're past the halfway point on the racetrack, the lap will end that time. But if we're past it, we may go another lap, or we might end. You know, it depends on where we are on the racetrack here, Andrew. So just about 14:30 left to go here.
Well, as we pick up back with our leader, Ansi Pilaha, he is currently working through the town, I believe. And so that's about, what, halfway through the circuit, somewhere around there. And, you know, these are 8-second or 8-minute lap times. I wish they were 8-second lap times. No, they're 8-minute lap times. A little more than that. But really, it looks like they're going to get one more full lap before the time expires, which means they should get 2 from here in total, because, you know, we'll be running when the time expires more than likely, and we should be able to come back around and complete that lap, and then that be it. iRacing, though, works in weird ways sometimes. I think at COTA we expected the race to be over, and it went an extra lap, so that was interesting. We'll wait and see exactly what goes on. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we can expect that we'll have one full lap before time expires. This lap should bring us to about, what, 2:17, I would say, and then we'll get the next lap going. I guess that's a decent guesstimation.
Yeah, we'll see how it pans out, though. Our metrics showing that they are going to go 18 full laps here, and we are on number 16, so we should get 2 to go here at the start-finish line. So for Anti, doing an excellent job just leading. He's out front. Like we said, we haven't had to talk as much about him today up until that incident with Jose Pabon, but apart from that, it's been relatively calm out here today. So Ocean Puhaka back down the road, about 48 seconds behind him. So yeah, everything sitting pretty right now. The question is, of course, are we going to expect anybody else to make a final stop on pits, or are we sitting looking at the running order here? I'd like to be able to tell you, except my stints are kind of goofed up because, remember, I had that issue with the router. So, unfortunately, I can't tell you Cameron Dance and Riley Thompson are going to be good because they've come down and made their final stop. Same with Mike Kelly. Eric Smith, same boat. Andy Banfield, some of these guys from there on out, you know, whatever. So, as far as Cameron Dance, Riley Thompson go, I know they're in. It depends on where we are with Tom Stanley, Claude Belval, and Ansi Pilaha, because we know Puhaka came down pit road, so we know he's good because this is his long stint essentially. So the question is the 37, the 56, and the 961, have they made that final splash and dash yet, Andrew?
Well, that's what I'm going to try and find out. I'm going to fire up my own little bit of third-party software, see if I can find that out myself. Let's see, you said Puhaka, and what was the other car?
Well, we know Puhaka is good. We just need to know the leader, the 37, the 56, and the 961.
So, it's looking like that's not going to help me, never mind. So that's not going to work, but I believe we're just waiting on... Really, I don't think we have to wait on anybody. I think Pilaha's even been in. But if anyone hasn't pitted, I think it would be Pilaha. I think everybody else has come through.
Okay, so...
Just looking at the difference from Pilaha to the rest, he would be the only one I'd expect back in. Puhaka, of course, will be running a little bit slow, I think, so that'll be an interesting battle there once Pilaha does come back in. I don't think anyone else should have to pit.
All right, so in that case, that makes sense, because looking at the intervals, it's about 48 seconds or so back to Puhaka. Then you got Belval, who is a minute 54 back. So it stands to reason Puhaka and Pilaha are probably going to come out and swap positions, but apart from that, that should be the end of it. It's about a Dottinger Hove and the rest of the front straightaway difference here. So we'll have to see if the 37 hits pit road, and if that'll be the case, those two will probably switch, and that should give Ocean Puhaka, who, remember, black flag pit earlier, you know, that'll save him. But nope, not going to come down pit road this time is the 37, so going to get 2 laps to go this time for that Ferrari, and 8 or 10 minutes to go here. If he really wanted to, if he and Puhaka really wanted to, they could slow right down and maybe try and force this thing to end on this lap if they wanted to game the system that way. But with that being said, it looks like they're just going to run normal pace and go for 2 laps here.
Well, as Riley Thompson has pitted now, he's out of the equation as far as these front few spots. Now Tom Stanley and Claude Belval are on top of each other. This is for third position. Yeah. These guys are on top of each other, and we've talked about the fiery Peregrine Audi of Tom Stanley. He was in the GTE class last time at COTA. He was the class of the field. Now he's in the Audi here with the GT3 cars, and he is right on Claude, and this should be a very fun battle to watch.
Yeah, it will. So we're going to keep an eye on these two. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on your leaders when the time comes. But right now, Tom Stanley running a little wide out of the mini carousel. But here we go. Out of the final corner onto the Dottinger Hove we go. And this is going to be where Stanley's going to have the advantage if he can just sniff a little bit of a draft here. He might be able to do something here with the Ferrari. But keep in mind that gearing is going to favor the prancing horse. Let's see what happens.
And we saw actually Belval kind of goofed one of those last few corners coming onto the Dottinger Hove. He actually got a little bit sideways, but it didn't seem to affect him at all. Belval had a great run down the Dottinger Hove, actually kept that lead over Tom Stanley even up into these last few corners of the lap, and really no pass going to be able to be made there. So they're going to come into these last few corners of the lap and possibly coming to their white flag. I don't think so, unless Pilaha and Puhaka, like you said, really slow down, but they could always do that, and Pilaha might not even come back in because of that if he hasn't come in yet. Really, he's running 8:14, so which I think is towards the slower end. I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, no, I think he's been on kind of the slower end, or Puhaka has been lately. Pilaha threw down a 8:14 last time by the circuit, and that was one of the fastest laps. So, yeah, looking through, Eric Smith's actually fairly decently fast. That Mercedes AMG ran an 8:13 last time by, so that's a very fast car as well. But with that being said, the teammates could slow things down and make this a white flag from here on, but looks like they're just going to run normal race pace and leave this out to the timer to give them, should be about white flag this time probably for Antti before the end of this thing.
And just looking through some of these guys, it looks like Michael Lane is in the pit lane. Not sure if he's been there for any extended period of time. Looks like it should just be a normal service. Back up to the front, though. Antti just, I guess, business as usual, just getting out there, completing a lap. I think he's pitted based on the fact that he's running some pretty fast lap times. We actually look back, and I was totally wrong. I was looking at based on the practice, they ran 8:10s. Well, this is normal, I think, an 8:14, 8:15. Yeah. So I definitely have to put my money on the fact that he's been in. He shouldn't have to pit again. Puhaka then should come home in second place unless something really bad happens, as he actually catches up, I believe, to Simon Thorns. No, that should be Thomas Peterson.
Still watching this battle with Stanley and Belval as they come out of the GP circuit onto the Nordschleife for the penultimate time. They actually, looking at the timer, it's going to be close actually for third and fourth. If the white flag kind of splits them all up, everybody could be on a lap behind. As
I said he was going to finish in second unless something really bad happened, and I think something really bad happened.
We're still good though. The stream is lagging. I don't know yet. We'll see. If my picture goes out, that'll tell me all I need to know. We'll have to see. No, we're good. We're good. Okay. I was worried there. Sorry. We've just been paranoid here. Once again, I'll flash up the graphic. I've had 3 disconnects so far this evening. I really don't want one in the last 5 minutes. That would be ideal because I don't know if I'd make it back in time. But with that being said, not to diminish what just happened on track, Ossian Puhaka just lost connection to the server. And in shades of the VLN Championship 1 season ago, basically just forfeit a podium spot. And to be on the podium with his teammate, too, that is huge implications.
But that means that now Claude Belval and Tom Stanley are both going to be on the podium unless they wreck each other, basically. As long as these guys don't tear each other's cars up, they should both be on the podium, second and third. So these guys battling now for a couple of the top spots, and now that moves an Audi onto the podium. The first time we've seen that all night long.
Yeah, and to put in perspective, Ferrari, Audi, Ferrari is your top 5 in terms of manufacturers. Then you got 2 Mercs back there with Mike Kelly and Brandon Whitworth. But still watching this battle, Tom Stanley took a look to driver's right that time as they head into town. And out they go, and Stanley got a little bit of the curbs there, so car got a little bit unsettled. Still battling right now. Belval and Stanley's for second place overall.
And if you go behind them, it's going to be Cameron Dance now should finish in the 4th position, assuming everything holds, which now puts Riley Thompson back into the top 5. The run he's had from starting 15th and just having a quiet day, working his way up. Really, he came into focal point when he just ran a lap further than everybody else, and in some cases, 2 laps further than most of the field. So really just, I mean, that's why he ended up getting, I guess, in our scope of focus, and now he's going to end up getting a top 5 the way it looks. So a big run for Riley Thompson. Then Mike Kelly going to get some valuable points here, should finish 6th.
And Mike Kelly, like we mentioned, points leader coming into tonight. He's going to come out of here with an excellent point total should things hold. Brandon Whitworth, basically, if you're Cameron Dance on back, you're about 3 minutes behind the leader. You're probably, this will be your final lap. But for Auntie, if he slows right down here, he could basically end this thing under the clock, because he's actually coming to the Dottinger Hove right now. So actually, no, he's going to go for another lap. As for Claude Belval, it's going to be close here. We have about a minute. If Belval, or rather if Pilaha comes across the line here, and if the gap is showing correctly for me, this is going to be extremely close, actually. And considering Belval and Stanley are going to be fighting, they're not going to lay off any, so they may force themselves onto another lap here. They're not just going to lay off and let this thing end for them very easily. So very interesting situation we're going to have, as Pilaha going to come down the Dottinger Hove and under the Bill Stein Bridge, come through the final 2 turns, and he'll get the white flag here this time. The virtual white flag. He'll have another lap to go. So another 8 minutes or so of racing here for that Inertia Ferrari 488 GTE, or GT3 rather, and comes across the start-finish line. So one final lap to go for our leader. Meanwhile, the battle for second, yeah, they're coming through. They're just getting ready to hit in the Dottinger Hove right now. Pilaha, it stands to reason the way the gap is, they're going to go for another lap as well. It actually might split Belval and Stanley when they get to the line here.
Shouldn't really split anybody, I don't think. They should all run this one more lap, given that the leader has taken 1 to go. I don't think anybody will run 1 less lap. That would be a bit odd to me, just based on...
the white flag should come out. If it comes out behind Stanley, Dance, Thompson, everybody else, they're done.
Well, time's now out by a minute. So we've already run out of time, I believe.
No. We still have a minute 30. Still have a minute 30.
Okay, so the ticker on the top of the iRacing overlay is wrong for me, so that's my bad. So that could split something up then.
Yeah, so this will split up the field, as Stanley got very hot going into the mini carousel here. But this might split up either the field behind Stanley, or it could literally split Stanley and Belval, as we have a minute left to go as we hit the Dottinger Hove for the final time.
Well, Belval had that big bobble just ahead of Stanley, then Stanley got him a little bit hot, like you mentioned. So these guys are, you know, they're at the end of a run pretty much, or at least as far as these tires are concerned. So they've been pushing on these tires, and they've got about everything they can out of them as we come down the Dottinger Hove, getting ready to possibly end this race for a couple of these guys.
Well, yeah, it should stand to reason. 40 seconds left. Maybe Stanley back is probably going to be done here. So Cameron Dance, yeah, not even to the Dottinger Hove yet. He will probably come to the start-finish line here to pick up the 4th position, but your podium looks like they're going to go on for another lap here unless they slow down. But Belval, Stanley coming through the final 2 turns, 25 seconds left to go. And yeah, they're going to be going on this thing for another lap. So this battle at the podium is not over yet. They're going to get one last lap to try and battle, and look at the run that Stanley gets off the corner. Maybe going to try and stick the nose in. They
just passed somebody, yeah.
Yeah, that was someone that looked like the purple and yellow machine of Lonnie Fitch, who might be just trying to end it on this field strategy. Yep, they're going to go for another lap. White flag is now out, so this is the final lap for everybody at this point. Whatever lap you're on, you get to the start-finish line, you're done. So Cameron Dance is going to come home in that 4th position, but your top 3 still going to battle as it's side-by-side for second.
And that was Gary Nichols they passed at the start-finish line. He's in a slow BMW, not sure what's up with him. And as Cameron Dance comes down the Dottinger Hove, we'll wait and see exactly what iRacing does. Yeah, I mean, Cisco, I think, has the expertise there, or at least the experience as far as what will happen here. So we'll definitely side with Cisco there. But as we come around the last few corners, it should be Cameron Dance finishing 4th.
Yeah, Cameron Dan's going to come across the start-finish line here in a little bit. We're staying with the battle for second, though, because it is very hot for the moment. Belval is under heavy attack from Tom Stanley in the Audi, and lost a little bit of time through the Schumacher S, but gains it all back as we head into the chicane here. And Stanley going to shoot a little bit wide off onto the rumble strips, but he's hanging tough with them. Cameron Dan's going to come across the start-finish line. His race tonight, that's it. He's going to finish 4th here at the Nurburgring. Stanley Belval still going on.
And Austin has reconnected, but doesn't look like he'll get a chance to get back on the track. So it's really just the focus is going to be on this second and third place battle as Tom Stanley's still trying to pursue that 56 of Claude Belval. And, you know, up at the front, again, it's been Pilaha this whole race. We know he's probably going to come home with this win. He's got a 2-minute lead, so we'll just stay focused on this battle. These two are just going back and forth. This has been a very fun battle to watch so far. And as they get onto the Nordschleife, we'll see exactly what they do.
Something to note here that I actually didn't take note of, all these cars on the lead are actually on the lead lap, 1 through 15. They aren't laps down, so they might actually get a chance to finish out on the lap they're on and stay on the lead lap here. So I might have been slightly wrong on that one. So I'm usually used to having lap down cars and stuff to where, yeah, it's ended for, so like a Rory Collins or someone, when they get to the start finish line, they're done. But yeah, I totally forgot that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking, is that maybe they were going to keep going since the leader had taken that white flag. So, and actually, will they even come around and complete it, or will they get one more lap after that? Because the race wasn't over.
If you're Mike Kelly, yeah, you're still going here.
Well, no, even Anti, we could be going one more lap after this, because Cisco, he took this lap under time. So we'll be getting the white flag around.
This is the white flag. This is the white flag.
Well, we'll see what goes on. Again, we'll side with your experience here, but it just... Yeah, we'll see, I guess. It's up in the air in my mind, but as Anti continues to lead, he's actually down the back half of this track now as Belval continues to lead Tom Stanley around.
Yeah, Belval and Stanley, that continues to be the battle. We were on board a little bit with Anti, who's heading up the hill right now, heading towards the 2 hairpins, but Stanley still tracking down the Ferrari of Belval, heading now through the left-right-hander, and these two have been so close here in this last 2 lap stint, and this battle continues. They head down the hill now and heading towards, I believe it's going to be Swedish Cross coming up here. Maybe perhaps we might be a little bit more further along than we were. Yeah, we are a little bit further along than I thought we were. We are at Metzgerfield here, so heading down now into Callenherd, and yeah, no, these guys going to be going at it. So great battle for the second spot. This is your last 2 spots on the podium going at it.
And yeah, this is the biggest battle I see on the track anywhere. So Tom Stanley still trying to get after Belval. We saw them actually just a moment ago get nose to tail for just a moment, about a foot apart, as now they head into one of the hairpins here on the track. And again, a foot apart maybe, as they just... This is great racing right here, considering no bumpers have been laid. I like that from Tom Stanley. He's getting there, and he's pressuring Claude Belval for sure, but he has not made any big advancement. He hasn't made any big outrageous move at the position yet.
Yeah, he hasn't, and you know, he'll, you know, when we get into the Danger Hove, honestly, if I'm Tom Stanley, I wait till then. I just make sure I'm staying with Belval. But when you get to the Danger Hove, make sure you're with that Ferrari and make your move, because Stanley had the opportunity to get by Belval, just wasn't close enough on the pit straight, because you have 2 straightaways, keep in mind. You still have that pit straight. If you really want to wait until the last possible second or try the counter, you only have to be ahead. You don't have to pass him. So we'll just have to see how things are going to go. But up the hill they go. And meanwhile, Antti heading down the hill through here. Heading up. He's already past the carousel. Heading up towards the mini carousel right now. And your leader, who has basically dominated this race after taking over from his teammate, Ossian Puhaka, going to head up the hill now. And in the mini carousel this time. And Antti going to be wrapping things up here. He's heading for the Danger Hove right now.
Yeah, and that was a great thing you mentioned there. Sorry, I actually lost my train of thought because I just watched something. I guess Michael Lane is done. I haven't seen him return to the Speedway, or sorry, Speedway circuit.
Yeah, Lane's a lap down, so he's done.
That's, yeah, I was trying to check on some of these battles. He's done, and I thought he just came in for regular service, but he's done. Anyways, as Anzi comes around, this should be completing the race, if not taking the white flag. Again, I can't see the... Yeah, I can't see... No, it does. I found a lap on the ticker. There we go.
Yes,
so you're right. My bad. Anyway, as he comes down the end of the Dodger Hove and the end of the 2.4 here at the Nurburgring, Antti Pilaha has just dominated Cisco. And what a great run. I'm glad he's actually getting to finish this one out because he saw Ossian almost take home a second place, but he's going to close out first.
Not the 1-2 they wanted, but Inertia's going to bring home the checkered flag anyway. Through the final couple turns, it's going to be Antti Pilaha who's going to come off the final turn, and he's going to pit straight to go, but he is victorious here at the Nürburgring. 2.4 hours across the start-finish line. He's going to come, slow that car right down. He's done for the evening, and he's going to bring home the checkered flag. So meanwhile, while he's in front, we swap back to the battle for the podium right here. Tom Stanley versus Claude Belval. Who's going to win it out of this one? They got still some racing left to go. Stanley right on the back bumper.
Yeah, I'm just used to a spotter, never heard it come over, but now Claude Belval catches some air, he continues on. That car is looking great. Neither one of these guys really has any damage. That just goes to show how good these two are, and maybe they didn't have the speed that Pilaha did from Inertia, but you know what? They have been on it all day long, and it's coming down to this as they get closer and closer to the Dottinger Hove. These guys are, I mean, if you're Tom Stanley, you almost made that pass at the line the last time around. You have to pull something of the same here.
Well, he didn't. He had a better carousel, but he still got a little bit loose, but so did Belval here. But final couple turns before we hit in the Dottinger Hove. Can Stanley close in and sniff that draft? And once again, Belval had a very good apex there. Here we go, onto the Dottinger Hove. This is the money point at this point. Stanley can get close enough to try and make something happen under the Audi Sport Bridge. Here we go, Hall gear time. Let's see who's got it.
All day long, the Ferrari has had the advantage down the Dottinger Hove, but of course you got to figure in the air, helping out Tom Stanley. If he can close out these last couple of corners and get right to him for that final straight, he might have a chance at second place. And Cisco, this is it. This is what matters right here for second and third.
Under the Bill Stein Bridge for the final time. Into Tiergarten we go. Does Stanley have anything left for Claude Belval? They close up here. Final couple corners going to be the hard breaking point here. Stanley's got the pit straight left, and that's about it. He closes it. He takes a look to driver's left. Does he have anything? And I don't know if he does. He's going to come right to the back bumper of Claude Belval. They'll go side by side, but at the line, I think it's going to go to Belval. Yes, it will. Stanley going to get out of the gas, and a great battle to the finish line there. Tom Stanley going to bring home third. Claude Belval going to bring home second. And a great battle on the podium for Antti Pilaha, who's already pulled the car off. He's celebrated, done all his donuts and everything while we were watching that battle. Meanwhile, how about Cameron Dance, who has been up and through the wars this evening, still has a Dottinger Hove to go for him, and Riley Thompson not too far in the background as well, but everything looking good for Dance here to bring that car home in fourth.
And Cameron Dance must have had a really slow lap this time by, because he has lost a ton of time back to Riley Thompson, who started this lap 13 seconds back.
He's actually
now these
slower.
guys,
Thompson's catching him.
Yeah, you have to wonder if Dance is running a higher engine map to maybe just save the little bit of fuel he needs to complete this race. That's what I would have to guess. This is going to be close as they come to the end of the Dottinger Hove. The last few corners on the track. This is it. This is the final corners for these guys too. We saw that battle from Tom Stanley and Claude Belval. Tom Stanley fell a little short, and I think it's going to be the same story here for Riley Thompson. A great run though from these two.
Thompson had the overspeed. We'll have to see final couple corners. Is Thompson going to have anything for Dance? We come through the final corner. No, Thompson got a little bit tight coming out of that last corner, and Dance is going to be able to hold on and steal away that fourth position from Riley Thompson. Thompson going to bring it home in fifth. Meanwhile, the points leader, Mike Kelly, through the final corner as well. He wasn't too far back of this, and he's going to come out of the Nürburgring way out in front on the point standings. Great run for Mike Kelly. Not a top five, but he got some valuable points on the rest of the field right here, and he'll bring it home in sixth. Brandon Whitworth, meanwhile, also coming out of the final corner as well. He's going to finish seventh. Still waiting on a couple more cars to finish out here, but what a job done by your podium between Antti Pilaha, who's basically in dominant fashion there, Andrew, and then Claude Belval and Tom Stanley. Fantastic battle.
That it was, and it was a lot of fun to watch. I wish Stanley maybe could have done something a little bit more with Claude Belval, but as Eric Smith comes into the final few corners, the penultimate corner now, as he actually comes out onto the final straight, he'll finish 8th. That's another big story, just like Cameron Dance, another big comeback there for Eric Smith after wrecking in the first few corners of the race. So good deal there. Joshua Kanata looking to come home in 9th. He's down the Dottinger Hove now. Then Lonnie Fitch still back there in the last few hairpins, but
Lonnie Fitch, after the issues that she got into in earlier and kept that car, you know, it still looks a little bit worse for wear than what Fitch would have liked, but nonetheless, great finish as well.
Yeah, for sure. To come home 10th after everything that 26 has been through today, and, you know, maybe being a little bit off pace, but still having, I guess, the get-go to stay in it and still run some decent lap times and, you know, complete this race in the lead lap. A good deal there for Lonnie. Carl Burke going to come home in 11th, more than likely. Then we'll get to Andy Banfield further back. But you mentioned it, real good run for Lonnie Fitch. So she will come home, rounding out your top 10.
No, she'll be 9th, actually. It looks like scoring and timing going to move everybody up a position here. To see what the issue is going to be. No, Mike Kelly's still 6th, Whitworth, Smith, Kanata, and Fitch. Oh, no, it's just my thing borking out a little bit there. So Fitch will be 10th here. Yeah, that was a little bit weird. I'm showing 2 cars in 9th place, so that's kind of weird. But, yep, here comes Fitch out of the final corner. She's going to bring it home in the 10th position. And Carl Burke not too far behind as well. Another Valvoline entry, sponsored AMG here, but we begin to round things out here. Andrew, final thoughts, or kind of your first impressions here as we still wait on a couple cars to finish out.
You know, I've been with these guys for a couple of races now, helping you and whoever else is here out, and to see these guys go from the Silver Crowns of Phoenix to this same kind of discipline of racing at COTA, and then to this place, to the Nurburgring, one of the, I think, one of the most prestigious tracks in all of racing. It's up there for sure. Definitely, I think, the most difficult. This place has been a whale of a time. It's been 2.5 hours realistically, and they turned a whole 18 laps. That was a cool dynamic to see. It's just, it was a really cool race to watch and to get to call. And so, you know, the battle right at the end, Claude Belval, Tom Stanley, that was cool to see as well. You know, the 2.5 hours come down to that. That was insane to see. And the pit strategy from guys like Riley Thompson and whatnot, that was cool. He went 2 laps further than some of these guys in that first run. So that was a cool move there. Just, it was a great event all around.
We're waiting on, we're on board with Simon Thorns right now, the last car on the lead lap. This is the last car we're actually waiting on before we can go ahead and run you through your full race results. And on the Dottinger Hove right now. And Simon Thorns, to kind of recap his day, start 23rd, is going to finish up here in 13th. So an excellent day for him. And we barely talked about the 974 all day. And that's probably, you know, that's kind of a good thing when you have a nice quiet day at the Nurburgring.
Yeah, it's better to just be in no news than all of the news, I guess, if you're running in the back, because you don't want to be in those instances that you get early on or even mid-race when you're trying to come in a pit and then get back out there. And the difference between old tires and new tires is there. You definitely are thrown for a bit of a loop until you can get back into a rhythm when you get on those cold tires that have all that grip. So that's interesting as he comes across to complete 2.4 hours of the Nürburgring. He'll finish in the 14th position, our final car on the lead lap, and so we can finally go to our results.
Yeah, we can, and we're gonna set all those up right now. So here's your full race results here from the Nürburgring for the Major Series 2.4 hours at the Nürburgring. We mentioned Antti Filaha is going to finish in the first position, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk to him and sort out the naming convention there. Claude Belval going to finish 2nd, 3rd going to go to Tom Stanley, 4th to Cameron Dance, Riley Thompson going to bring it home in 5th, Mike Kelly 6th, Brandon Whitworth 7th, Eric Smith running in 8th, finished in 8th, 9th to Joshua Kanata, and Lonnie Fitch. She rounds out your top 10.
Carl Burke comes home in 11th, and Andy Banfield in the 6th finishes off in 12th. Randy Ludwig in 13th. Simon Thorns, we just talked about him, the final car on the lead lap in 14th. Rory Collins actually still on the track. I'm not sure if he's even finishing at this point. He shouldn't be.
He's just cruising, looking at the speed.
Yeah, that would definitely make more sense. He's still out there, though, in 15th, so he was the first car a lap down. Not that bad of a run for Rory, as Eddie Hawks follows him up in 16th. Then Jason Wallet. Again, didn't really talk much about him, but I think we might have to watch out for him a little bit when we go to Charlotte here in about a month's time. And behind him, actually coming into this race, second in points, but it's going to be interesting to see exactly how he leaves the Nurburgring. It's going to be Thomas Peterson who finishes 18th, then Michael Lane in 19th, and to round out your top 20 is Terry Halleck.
And 21st is going to be Julian Huxley, Ocean Paka, who's talking a little bit in Discord right now. Not the night he wanted at all. Started second, beat his teammate to the line, got a black flag for that, served it, looked like he was going to have the opportunity to finish second, and then falls out of the sim. So a long day for Ocean Paka. He's going to finish 22nd. Gary Nichols is going to finish 23rd. 24th to Marshall Williams. 25th to Jerry Wellman. 26th to Ross Banfield. Jose Pabon going to finish 27th. 28th to Jerry Forkel. Mark Glossing finishing 29th. All the drivers here pulled it behind the wall earlier in the race. 30th to Timo Toika. And then Eric Klein and Michael Lightly round out your 32-car field. Well, we're going to see if we can get a couple more drivers in here that we can talk to, and as we do that, we'll be able to go to a voluntary commercial break here. You're watching the 2.4-hour race at the Nürburgring for the Atlantic Majors Pro Split right here on your home for sim racing, LSRTV. Be back in a moment.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of LSRTV, and it may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Live Sim Racing LLC and iRacing.com Motorsport Simulations. LSRTV would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.
Back live here on LSRTV, your home for sim racing. Cisco Scarmoza and Andrew Cardinelli have brought you the call here this evening, and 37 Avanti Pilaha is going to bring home the checkered flag, but unfortunately for him, not available to talk this evening, not hanging out in TeamSpeak. So with that, we're going to head to driver finish P3. That's Tom Stanley, and going to send it down to Andrew Cardinelli, who's caught up with him on pit road.
Well, Tom Stanley, we saw you dominate the GTE class back at COTA, and even tonight, a really good run out of your number 961 Audi. Tell us all about trying to battle with Claude Belval there at the end.
Oh, so much fun. So much fun. I hope you found it very entertaining, because I just couldn't get by him. The weight penalty with the Audi with 30 kilograms, I've really affected it on the back straight, so I could get a draft, but by the time the straight was over, I was not even beside him. But yeah, it was just so enjoyable, and I'm glad I took tyres just so I can just attack and just fight for P2.
Yeah, that's a good call actually there, Tom. We weren't aware of that weight penalty, I don't think, so that weight penalty definitely did play into effect, and that probably is why he had that leg up on you down the Dottinger Hove. But it really was a good battle to watch. It was very entertaining for Cisco and I. We saw you get there a couple of times, nose to tail, just couldn't make a move. This track, of course, is very tight in a lot of different places, maybe 160 of them, sounds right. But it was still a great run from you, from 7th to 3rd, and for Belval from 6th to 2nd. You guys both did a great job of keeping your cars in one piece and attacking the day as a whole rather than just those first few laps where some guys had a couple of faults. So a great run from you guys. Really, I think we have some extra time since it seems like you're the only one here, but really just overall, how would you sum up your run today in that 961?
Very lucky, especially the first lap where I think it was Eric who had a problem on the first lap and had damage, and he held up a lot of us. When I checked up, the guy, I think it was Ross behind me, didn't really check up, so I had rear damage from the get-go until I pitted to use a free repair. From then on, it was just running laps, making sure I'm using the slipstream as much as I can with the weight penalty. So again, it was just, I found it a very enjoyable race when considering I wasn't looking forward to this race. So yeah, it was a good race, good power points, another decent result in the road series. I just got to really make it up in the oval.
And speaking of both looking forward to races and the oval side of things, tell us all about, I guess, as we look forward in about a month's time to the World 600 down in Charlotte, totally different scope from the last couple of races we've seen at Circuit of the Americas and now Nurburgring. Do you think you have maybe what it takes to at least get a decent finish there in Charlotte?
I think if I'd be lucky to get in the pro split, I hope I can get a good decent amount of points, because both last 2 oval races I've been in the club and split. So I think getting a good quality time is very important just to get in there to get the good points. I'm semi decent at oval. I have won a number of championships in truck a few years back, but that's a couple of years ago. I haven't really touched oval since then. But again, I think it's just keeping it clean and oval, which I'm quite good at, really.
All right, well, hopefully we see you down in Charlotte for the World 600, the longest race on the NASCAR circuit being brought to the Majors Series. Now, as far as who helps you out in that 961, tell us all about who you got to shout out.
Shout out to Craig Setup Shop for posting his setup on there. Again, thanks to the Peregrine guys for just getting me home in a very clean car, and a welcome and a thank you to Motorsport 101 for us being supporting of them.
Sounds good, Tom. Thanks for the time, and hopefully we see you again down in Charlotte in a month's time.
All right, guys, take care.
And that was Tom Stanley. Cisco, I think that was a great talk to have with him. Had a really great run. Definitely looking forward to the rest of the season. Definitely a little bit nervous, I'd say, about the oval side.
Yeah, and it's definitely something to where we're going to have drivers we're going to have a stern eye on here coming out in a little bit of in some time here, because we're expecting them to run very well at the oval. So we'll have to see if that's going to be the case. But that, of course, will be in about 1 month. We say good evening here from the Nurburgring, Nordschleife, for everybody here behind the scenes who makes it happen. DJ Lion, Laura Lawson, and a very, very missing Evan Pasoko, who is out on the West Coast doing monster truck stuff. And for the broadcast crew this evening, for myself, Cisco Scaramuzza, and for Andrew Cardinale, we say good night here from the Nurburgring, and make sure to stay up to date with LSRTV. Gonna have RSR, the Full Throttle RSR Cup Series, coming up tomorrow night here on LSRTV, and after that, plenty of racing left to go in the week. You can check out our full schedule at our website at www.livesimracing.com. But that'll do it for us here. We hope to see you next time here. Thanks to Michael Lett and everybody behind the scenes at the Major Series, and we say good night and have a safe and fun rest of the week here. Good night.